Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength, rivaling the intensity of Hurricane Camille of 1969. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks, perhaps longer. At least one half of well-constructed homes will have roof and wall failure. All gabled roofs will fail, leaving those homes severely damaged or destroyed. The majority of industrial buildings will become non-functional. Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength, rivaling the intensity of Hurricane Camille of 1969. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks, perhaps longer. At least one half of well-constructed homes will have roof and wall failure.
That was the emergency alert message from the night before Katrina made landfall. Good morning. 6:05 now at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane is off and running. And yes, today is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and that is what we're going to be covering throughout the show. Got a lot of ground to cover. We'll talk to a stack of guests. We are stacked up from that on that front. But before we get to any of it, top stories and trending. Let's go.
Number 5.
The West Baton Rouge Fire Protection District Number 1 Board voted to abolish a full-time fire chief position from the parish classification plan. Instead, they're moving forward with retired State Fire Marshal Butch Browning in a part-time role.
Number 4.
Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser broke the news with us Wednesday morning. Now it's official. Louisiana will once again have a float in the 2026 Tournament of Roses Parade in Pasadena, California. This year's float theme is Gulf to Gumbo, highlighting the state's seafood industry. American Idol runner-up and Addis native John Foster will provide the mid-parade entertainment.
Number 3.
Crews have begun pouring the bridge deck for the new City Park Lake Bridge, marking a key step forward as progress continues on the first stage of the I-10 widening project near the University Lakes. State's Department of Transportation and Development officials said Thursday this phase includes widening the westbound bridge, local roadway modifications, and corridor improvements between City Park Lake and Perkins Road.
Number 2.
Jumping over to the other side of the river, South Korea-based manufacturing company S&T is investing $59.4 million to build its first U.S. consolidated manufacturing facility in West Baton Rouge Parish. The facility will create 275 new direct jobs, 418 indirect jobs with its construction.
Number 1.
Takes us out to the tropics real quick, and we'll take a closer look in about 20 minutes. But as we sit on the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, we're pretty clear as far as the tropics are concerned right now. There is one wave forecast to emerge off the west coast of Africa this weekend. It's got a 20% chance of becoming a named storm over the next 7 days. But as it stands right now, looking good.
Well,
what you got, JP?
Today, of course, is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina making landfall.
I mean, a lot of debate went into how much we were going to cover on this.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, the more I thought lean in. We need to lean in.
Yep.
And when that Nat Geo documentary came out, and it just punches you right in the face with how brutal the destruction was, with how long-term, I mean, there's still places that are just leveled and not back yet. Like, when you walk back down the path again, and I can't wait to, coming up 6:35, WWL's Dave Cohen. You're going to love this conversation. Dave works mornings, so I recorded it ahead of time so we wouldn't be trying to jam him in between news reports.
Good.
The level of destruction, the overwhelming, like, it was so all-encompassing.
Yeah.
Just when you put it all together, I was like, there's no way we don't do as much as we can. So it'll be 2.5 hours of Katrinaversary and then half hour of pregame. I mean, it's going to be a difficult split, but we'll manage the transition.
But that's what we're used to in Louisiana, right? I mean, we take on hurricanes and then the resilience. You know what?
Yes.
Here's football season. Here we go. Right, There's no keeping us down for long.
Let me reveal this little behind-the-curtain fail that I had in trying to put out a lineup. One of the guests that I wanted, I wanted whoever was running the PMAC in the wake of Katrina.
Yeah.
Because we did play a football game in Tiger Stadium while the Maravich Assembly Center was a triage center. Basically, you got an episode of MASH going on in there and football going on here. Here's the thing, though. Every time I asked, like, no matter who I asked or where I went, I was like, who was in charge of logistics in the PMAC? I want that inside, like, the behind the curtain look. And everyone was like, it's Sean O'Keefe. I'm like, it was not the president of the university walking around with a clipboard saying that bed's available, take them over there. Like, that's not. So anyway.
Yeah.
But it's that dichotomy, right? It's that.
For sure.
So, yeah, that's where we're at today.
And while most of today's attention will be on Katrina's anniversary, it is also Labor Day weekend, which means tons of people on the roads.
Not this morning, hopefully. But mark it down, man. You go look at the interstate at about 1 o'clock this afternoon, 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah.
Immediately after school lets out.
Oh,
like
done.
those that'll just go from the carpool line to the interstate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're rough out there.
Yeah.
In other local news, Breck's Baton Rouge Zoo welcomed its first Dama gazelle. It was a calf at the zoo. Am I pronouncing that right? I see it right. Dama.
Yeah, but you need like a pause in between Dama. I don't know if it's Dama or Dama, but it's a gazelle.
Gazelle. Yeah. It was a calf at the zoo, and the male calf was born on August 16th.
So we need to get Brittany Tully in next week to talk about
That's
this.
what I'm talking about.
Somebody from the zoo
She
to come
can
on.
give us,
yeah.
A little bit more insight on
man. It's always a big deal when something new is born over at the zoo.
Yes. Like that.
611 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Let me give you this guest list rundown here before we take our break, come back, talk a little sports. 635 WWL's Dave Cohen. In the wake of Katrina, a new communication force known as the United Radio Broadcasters was born. We're going to talk about that. 650, Jordan Generes. He's with NeuroJust. Y'all know NeuroJust is a sponsor here on the show. One of the most undertold stories of Katrina was the mental health aspect in the wake of it. And the numbers are stark. We'll talk with Jordan Generes about, we talk anxiety and depression when we talk NeuroJust. What about PTSD? That's where we're going there. 7:15, Kelly Schulz from Nolan Company is going to hop on board. 20 years worth of rebuilding, culminating in the Super Bowl this year, where New Orleans is back to its born to host, or built to host, I guess rebuilt to host mantra. 7:35 till 8 o'clock, we got Ed Bush coming on. Ed is with the Red Cross now. He was with the National Guard. Long and the short of it, first man in, last man out of the Superdome in the wake of Katrina. 8:05, Matt Kennedy's hopping on board. Matt, of course, used to co-host this show with me back in the day. Before that, he was at WJBO, and so was I. Matt hired me. Matt was my mentor, and he was pivotal in that United Radio broadcaster scene as well. 8:15, General Russel Honoré. This is another previously recorded conversation. We got about 6 minutes with Russel Honoré before we make the pivot over to football. When we pivot over to football, we got two topics to cover. The first one is the folks at Mockler Beverage or Anheuser-Busch have a new NIL deal with the Weeks brothers. We'll tell you all about that. Dan Palmer will join us at 8:25. 8:35, The Voice, Chris Blair, will be on the hotline. It's LSU, it's Clemson, it's mini Death Valley. We'll talk about all of it this morning. Right now, quick break, come back. We got some audio from Coach Kelly next. I just saw the playback. All right. Oh, man. Morning show host and choreographer right there. Okay, I want you to find the end of that message after that, because that repeated. It repeated it. So find the end of it and chop it down just to that. Oh, yeah. What are the titles on them? Yeah. Okay. 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 Those are the three from Kelly. I've got two from Nussmeier. Okay. Yeah. Offense. Abbreviated. Okay, so we gotta go back a couple nights. Look, break time is not gonna be Katrina related, y'all. Couple nights ago, the wife and I were rewatching Ted Lasso, and you know how Phil Collins' Easy Lover has been stuck in my head for 3 months now?
Yeah.
So we're watching Ted Lasso the other night, and Ted actually says at one point, he's talking about how long it takes him to get dressed. He says it should take every man the exact same time that it takes Phil Collins to sing Easy Lover.
Wow.
And then a couple episodes later,
Wasn't that in the first season?
It's season 2.
It is season 2?
It's season 2, and he's listening to Easy Lover while getting ready for Rebecca's dad's funeral.
Oh, man.
And he has a panic attack in the middle of it, but I'm like...
And then you got all this?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm like... But it's not helping to get the damn song out of my head.
Right.
Oh, and then I'm in Golden Nugget yesterday, or the night before last, and I'm walking, like, there's a little after party going on, which is why I took yesterday off. Little after party going on, and Easy Lover's coming on, and I'm like, well, now I'm just going to look like an ass just singing and dancing in the hallway. Are we back?
Oh, man, I love it. Yeah.
All right, let's slam through these. We got no time at all.
Nope.
6:51 tomorrow night, the LSU Tigers and Clemson Tigers will kick off to begin the 2025 football season. A lot of anticipation leading up to this game. In fact, that's exactly what Brian Kelly talked about in the coaches' teleconference this week.
I think everybody is in the same place at this time, excited, anticipating the opener, players, coaches, staff, fan bases is what this is all about, getting a chance to see your team play and perform. We're still practicing, but you can tell the guys got an eye toward this opener. So like I said, I think our fan base is excited. I know they are. I know our players are, our staff is, and we've got a great challenge against an outstanding football team and program.
The challenge here is great, and you're coming off 5 straight years worth of losing the opener. So changes were made this offseason, hopefully to put an end to that streak.
Well, in terms of the opener, we upgraded our roster, and I think that's probably at the end of the day the biggest thing. Everybody talks about iron sharpening iron. We didn't have iron all the time. We had iron versus butter. Butter doesn't like iron. And so, from that perspective, the competition in camp was so much different when you have the kind of depth that we have built here, and it's taken time, right? And we still have some work to do. I think that's probably the biggest difference. There's some nuances in terms of our schedule. We got into a routine, a game week schedule earlier than I had in the past, but the other things are pretty similar.
One more from Brian Kelly before we move on to Garrett Nussmeier, and that would be about game week prep specifically to get ready for Clemson.
Well, we're going to find out, right? I mean, this was really about trying to get into a routine so game week didn't feel so unusual. And I think our guys really adapted well to understanding that even in camp, each day of the week, which is part of our in-season routine, was laid out. So they knew what to expect, even in camp, in terms of, what the practice was going to look like. And I think that allowed them to be a lot more intentional about their work each and every day. But again, the proof is in how you perform, right? I mean, our preparation has been really good. We have to go perform now.
Moving over to quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, walking into the season is, pretty much the Heisman front runner, but he's going to start in a hostile environment.
Yeah, it's going to be a hostile environment. It's a very special place, very storied program. Obviously, you know, they have a really cool environment there. So I think for one, just embracing that opportunity to go into an arena like that, to try and silence a crowd, I guess you could say. You know, that's kind of your mindset when you're playing a big road game. And we've played in some stadiums that are unbelievable. I mean, Texas A&M, South Carolina last year, Florida. I mean, we played in some big time places. So it's nothing new to us, but I would say that their place is one of those places.
Like we said, kickoff is slated for 6:30. It's actually going to be like 6:51. You'll hear it on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. Eagle 98.1's game day begins at 1:30. We'll take you for the first 3 hours before Eagle will take you for the first 3 hours before handing off to the network. Also tomorrow, Southern's at Mississippi Valley State for a 4 p.m. kickoff. Right now, here comes the Fox Business Report at 6:20. All right, Byron, I don't want to disappoint you, but the the General Honoré audio, you've probably already heard. We had him on at the beginning of hurricane season. And the point of that interview was about the overview of all of hurricane season. But the first 4 minutes of that interview, maybe 5, were specifically about him looking back on Katrina. I asked him all those questions then with the purpose of replaying it today. So it's kind of a rerun. And it's another chance for him not to call me Harold. So Steven says, no wonder no one left the city. I couldn't understand a word he said. Talk about the alert message. Yeah. I got most of it. Keith is telling me the live stream's opening in Reels. Well, it opens on our homepage as well. I don't. Yeah, just close it out in Reels and go over to Talk 1073's page. I was working with DCFS when Katrina hit. Got stationed at GOSEP for about 2 weeks. Some crazy stories, I bet. So, yeah, get out of Reels and go to our homepage. I bet you there's something triggering in there as well, because I get alerted that we're in Reels as well, but like, yeah, I don't mind. But it's going to be like a 3-hour reel. Who has a 3-hour reel? Oh, and good morning, Christy. Welcome in, sweetheart. All right, that check on the drive is going to start on the interstates where it's business as usual over on I-12 westbound coming in from Livingston Parish. You're going to find a little bit of volume, nothing to make you want to alter your route or anything like that. Meanwhile, I-10 westbound coming in from Ascension Parish, that's looking as clear as it normally is as well. 10 eastbound coming back across from the west side, we've got smooth sailing there. Both bridges are wide open. I-110's wide open. On your surface streets, there's really nothing to report there either. Do you know where Aletha Drive is? Aletha Drive, it's showing the BRPD is reporting traffic congestion and blockage. Oh, you know what? That's from 3 o'clock this morning. I bet you it's going. So, and that's like literally the only thing on the report. So, smooth sailing to start off your Labor Day Friday or Labor Day weekend Friday right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Yeah. 624 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Quick moment to thank State Representative Emily Chenevier for filling in for me yesterday. the Louisiana Travel Association. I was at their summit the day before, and there's some rollover there. It makes it so much easier to have someone I can call on to just say, you know what, I'm gonna take a travel day. And she did a bang up job. I heard a good chunk of it. Was it she was good the whole way through, JP?
Oh, it was so good. She's
Okay.
always great.
Yeah,
always great.
Yeah. And so I greatly appreciate her for stepping in. Also want to give a shout out to the Louisiana Travel Association. Those two shows on Wednesday, they really exemplify what we've got going on here in Louisiana. I know as we look back on Hurricane Katrina today, and I'm going to share some of my thoughts on the anniversary in just a minute, but as we look back on Hurricane Katrina today, the thought that we are where we are right now, like as a state, is just, it's amazing, because there is no corner of the state, there's no nook nor cranny of the state where we don't have something going on, something wonderful to celebrate. And it's great to step away from the news cycle once in a while, to step away from the political battles, to step away from, state government, metro council, mayor's office, whatever you want to step away from, to dive into, like, just sit back and ask everybody from around Louisiana, hey, why are you awesome? Like, why should we come to Tangipahoa, Louisiana, and have Carla spell out a really good answer, or talk with Alana from up in Alana Cooper from in Monroe, West Monroe. And I don't want to highlight one or two because they were all great, but I mean, just a lot of Louisiana on my map right now that I need to take advantage of. And by the way, Lake Charles was no slouch as a host. Really great. So, and just super duper shout out to Chris, to Megan, to everybody over at LTA, the Louisiana Travel Association, for bringing me out there. I'm like, pencil me in. Pencil me in. Put it in ink. We're there again next year. It's such a great experience. So I hope y'all enjoy the content as well, because what I was getting, the feedback I was getting from it was more along the lines of like relatability. Like we'd start talking about some place in, let's take Lake Charles, for example. Start talking about Lake Charles, and everybody hop in a chat and tell me go to Daryl's for a po' boy. And like, no, not gonna do it. My heart belongs to Rocco. I can't.
Not even just a little nibble?
I passed it on. So it's right off at 210.
Tempting, right?
It's right off at 210. And fortunately for me, it's after the off-ramp. So,
okay.
You have the exit to get down to Daryl's, and then you pass Daryl's, and it's like, well, it's already in my rear view. I got to go. Avoid the temptation.
There you go.
Got to go. So, anyway, good stuff there. It is 6:27 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Got to take a moment to remind you about the folks over at Breck. Breck.org is the home base right there to check them out online. We will be out at Highland Road Park tomorrow morning. One of my favorites, getting out there. Man, if there's only a way to get rid of the dew. Other than that, it's perfect, right? You get out to Highland Road Park first thing in the morning, and you're seeing cross-country teams from schools all over the city that are out there getting ready for the upcoming cross-country season. You make your way over by the football field, and there's something going on. There was an event going on last weekend that had nothing to do with athletics. And then, in a couple weeks from now, there'll be rugby going on, which is awesome. You get some folks just stretching the legs out, walking the dogs, whatever the case might be. Highland Road Community Park is one of those examples of what Breck does right, and that is bringing community together. It's a great thing to see. So if you're so inclined to check out one of Breck's community parks, I highly encourage it. To get all the deets, visit breck.org. Let's dig back in on the tropical map for just a quick second. As we stand right now on August 29th, we are up to the G storm will be the next one. Gabrielle, I believe, is the name of it. We've only gotten through Fernand, and we have yet to have something, and obviously knock on wood for this, but we've yet to have a real threat to landfall. We had some storm surge from Fernand, or was it Aaron? One of the two pushed some waves over. It was Aaron. Pushed some waves over to affect the East Coast. But in a no news is good news world, I'll keep at this, man. I will stay at this every single day. There is right now, or there will be over the weekend, a tropical wave forecast to emerge off the west coast of Africa. As it makes its way from east to west, Environmental conditions could support some slow development of the system. It'll be moving west to northwest at about 15 to 20 miles per hour. It's got no chance of becoming a hurricane or a named storm over the next 2 days, but it's got a 20% chance over the next 7. So it's the latest that we're going to follow. Not raising any alarms just yet, but we will have one eye on it to be sure. All right, we got news coming up in 1 minute from right now. We'll start with ABC News before hitting our local news, traffic, and weather. I got to look at the news call from Louisiana Radio Network. It's going to be Katrina heavy as well. And it's just an important day to remember. Hurricane Katrina on a personal level. I've got a lot of family down in New Orleans and or Metairie. We were lucky. I mean, we had some relatives had to, tear sheetrock out and go get that infested Chinese stuff. But we came through it unscathed as a family. And professionally, my goodness, Katrina skyrocketed my career. There was the ability to work if you wanted to work in radio. There was nothing but opportunity. Later on in the show, I'll share a little bit as we move along, but we'll break it down right after news, traffic, and weather. WWL's Dave Cohen is next. I tried to squeeze too much into one segment there. It's such a weird. Oh, good morning. Did I say good morning to Christy already? I think I did. It's worth saying twice.
Yeah. You know what, Jamie, if you're watching too, hey.
There you go.
Shout out. Sometimes she watches.
Byron says, what did you think of the Golden Nugget? I thought it was awesome. Let's see. How do I break this down nicely? I don't know what steak place. Wednesday night and a Thursday. I'm just continuing the after party. Someone went over to the steak place and ordered a steak to go, and brought it back over to where we were all drinking. And so everybody's picking it, they cut it up into little pieces, and everybody's picking at it, steak in a styrofoam container. And I got to tell you, it was probably because I was drunk, but it was the best steak I've ever had in my life. Until somebody knocked the damn thing on the floor. Oh. I know. I'm I know I'm pretty lit up, but I'm not eating floor steak. I'm not eating floor steak in a casino. What is this, The Hangover eating couch pizza? Yeah. Dude, did you just eat couch pizza? Right. I'm not eating floor steak at a casino. No, the Golden Nugget was awesome. I donated $20 to a video poker machine. That's not entirely true. I won $20 over at the DraftKings Sportsbook and donated it right back to a video poker machine. That's more accurate.
Okay.
Breaking even, baby.
That's it.
Oh. But top-notch facility. The meeting space was perfect. The room, oh my God, the room was incredible. And I was just in a standard king room.
Yeah.
6th floor. The view. Okay, here's how the view stacked up. Actually, you know what? Can I do this? Can I post a pic in the comments?
Yeah, you should be able to.
How do I get to the? Where is the picture of the? Here's my view. Okay. Now let's go back to the chat and see if I can just paste it there. Is that how that works?
Oh yeah, if you're not allowed to access your camera from the comments, yeah, that's how you do it.
Did that work?
I don't see anything yet, but
It's not going to let me post this stupid thing. Try this one more time. Did that work? No, it did not. Damn it. Delete.
Oh, man.
All right, fine. Screw it. It's not going to let me do it. I had a great view. Sixth floor, which, I mean, that's not that high up, and even still, my view overlooked the pool, the lazy river, what looked like some kind of amphitheater, and then like some kind of field of some sort that had stands, but it wasn't a big enough field to be any sport that I know of. And then there's the golf course beyond that, and then the lake and the 210 bridge, and of course the industry that employs everybody on the backside of that. The room was top notch. The service was incredible. The meeting space was awesome. And I don't think I ate anything bad over the course of 2 full days. So the lunch on Wednesday was interesting.
What was it?
A nacho bar.
Ooh.
Yeah. Sliders, chicken sliders, and mini corn dogs.
Give me all of it.
I know.
I'd be like, let's go.
I know. So you got all these
for it.
You got all these hotel people who serve the same rubber chicken every to every conference, and they're like they were in hog heaven.
Yeah. Corn dogs. That's really fascinating.
Mini corn dogs.
Oh, the mini ones.
Yeah. So you just
yeah. Man, that sounds good. Yeah, it looks like your comment just says, "Here's my view,"
and then nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
Oh man.
All right, I'm gonna disappear, y'all, because Cohen is recorded.
Emma K. Cowan's place.
Yeah.
Or is that? Oh,
Yeah, she
really?
gone. She moved.
Dang.
The 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. One of the main stories that I remember is a story of communication, a story of a number of people coming together at the absolute worst time to help turn the tide and get the word out to folks. Dave Cohen with WWL is on the hotline with us right now. Dave, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. We're all a little in our feelings 20 years after the storm, but yeah, doing good.
The aftermath of Katrina, I'm not even sure how many people remember this, but there was this thing called the United Radio Broadcasters where obviously all the towers are wiped out, all the stations are wiped out in New Orleans, and everybody from, at the time, Intercom and Clear Channel came up here to Baton Rouge to broadcast from the Clear Channel studios, and you were one of, if not the most vital or integral part of that. Tell me a little bit about the story. Tell me about how this went down and how it came together.
Well, it was an odd thing. After the evacuation was ordered in New Orleans, most of the radio station personnel from most of the stations in the city decided they were leaving. Mm-hmm. And WWL clearly was not. We were staying on the air. We were doing whatever it took, and we didn't even know. But the other stations that were owned by other companies, Clear Channel included, put our signal on their radio station. And so throughout the landfall of the storm and the immediate aftermath, any of the stations that stayed on the air were simulcasting the WWL signal, not just our 6 radio stations, but all of the others. And when it became evident that New Orleans was not going to be inhabitable for a long time after Katrina, once we learned that the levees had broken, the lake was emptying into the bowl that we call the city, and that there was going to be 8 to 15 feet of flood water across much of New Orleans, we knew we could not safely and in a humane way continue to keep a staff and operate in New Orleans. So Clear Channel had a helicopter and offered to help evacuate our staff from our studios in the aftermath. And we accepted their offer. And they said, hey, in exchange, can y'all come to our studios and provide us with programming, and we'll have some of our personnel help out. And then was born the United Radio Broadcasters of New Orleans. And for weeks after the storm, all of the radio stations from then Entercom, now Odyssey, and then Clear Channel, now iHeart, were carrying 24-hour round-the-clock joint programming where we were covering the rescues, the recovery, and the preparation for the rebuilding.
Remember it vividly. I'm not even sure if you remember this part of it, but when y'all first got to Clear Channel in Baton Rouge, you're banging on the door, and there's this punk kid on the other side of the door, and you're like, we need to take over your stations. And that punk kid on the other side of the door was me. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on right now, bro. I need some kind of clearance. And you, like, very firm in your stance, and obviously got things done in a very, very short period of time. But, man, I remember that moment like it was yesterday.
Well, punk kid, it's good to talk to you. And I don't know if I used the words take over, but I probably was pretty stern because we were in crisis at that point.
Oh, God, yes.
And to be honest with you, we had just, for the first time since landfall, gotten to sleep at all. And so what we did was we took 4 hours of interviews we had done that day, Governor Blanco's news conference, Mayor Nagin's news conference, and several other audio files that we could put together on cassette tape.
Oh, wow.
And had 4 hours of programming that we were going to replay from midnight to 4 a.m. so that we could, for the first time in 5 days, sleep.
Unbelievable.
And I got a call just as I hit play on the cassette player that I had to leave the Emergency Operations Center in Jefferson Parish, where we had a bunker and an emergency studio, and head to Baton Rouge to start this United Radio Broadcasters of New Orleans. And so I had one of the guys that was rescued from our studios in the Clear Channel helicopter landed on the West Bank, and I told him I got to sleep. So he drove me to Baton Rouge, to that Xerox building, and so that I could sleep on the way there and at least get a couple hours. Mm-hmm. And when we got there, we had literally 60 minutes of that cassette tape left before we had to get in there, get in the studios, and start that show, or we would have dead air. So when I got there and nobody was there, and nobody was answering the door, and nobody was answering the phone, when you finally opened the door, you were like, oh, okay. At least now I know we can get in, and hopefully we can get on the air, because, we owed it to the people of New Orleans, of Louisiana, and really around the country who were listening to our broadcast to find out what was going on in the aftermath of Katrina, to not have dead air and to continue our broadcast.
Well, and we had no idea at the time what a vital line of communication was going to be, because after everything was up and running, Dave, I remember like posting up and helping screen calls and whatnot. And like United Radio Broadcasters was taking calls from people inside their attic, and we were relaying the information like directly to state police. I mean, it was, y'all were a vital line of communication.
We never planned to be that. We never thought we would be that. We knew we had to stay on the air. We knew we had to continue broadcasting wherever it was from or however we could do it. The day before, I actually walked through floodwaters to get to our transmitter to switch over to our backup fuel source so that we wouldn't lose that transmitter. We were walking through snakes and alligators and floating fire ants to do that. Because we had realized, like you just said, now we were more than just an information source. We were literally helping save lives because people couldn't get through to 911. They couldn't get through to their authorities locally. So if they could get a signal for just a second, and it was hard to get one because most of the cell phone towers were down or out of fuel. But they could, they're calling us from rooftops and attics. We even got a text, and who even knew what a text was then?
That's when we all learned how to text.
I ever got. The first text I ever got was around that time, after Katrina. It was someone who was stranded on top of a grave, in all the raised graves in the New Orleans cemetery. That's how they got out of the floodwaters, and they were desperately waiting for a boat or a helicopter to come rescue them.
Wow. We're talking with Dave Cohen from WWL, who was the front runner, the one who got United Radio Broadcasters started in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. Want to talk about disseminating information, if we could, Dave, because national news, it felt like they were in town in the aftermath just to sensationalize. Getting accurate information back home to New Orleans was vital. How difficult was that with the stretch between the city in Baton Rouge, between GOSEP and the Xerox building, between Mayor Nagin down in New Orleans and his information center? That's a lot of relaying going back and forth.
And especially when you had phones that wouldn't work, because cell phone towers really south of Gonzales were all down. None of them were working. The landlines were all dead. There used to be landlines. But communication was so difficult. So it wasn't easy. And we had our studios there at the Xerox building, but our entire news team, which at the time grew to about 30 or 40 people because reporters from all over the country came and were working as a team to cover the aftermath of the storm for not only WWL and Entercom and Clear Channel, but for radio stations nationwide. So we would come there, and our hosts were there broadcasting, but the news team all went to New Orleans, Plaquemines Parish, St. Bernard Parish, Jefferson Parish, Lafourche, Terrebonne, every day, gathered all the information they could, and they would drive back to Baton Rouge with it and present everything that they had found out.
Got just a minute or two left with WWL's Dave Cohen. I'm forgetting at this point how long United Radio Broadcasters ran for, because, I mean, y'all were in Baton Rouge for quite some time. Yeah,
it started kind of one station would peel off and start to do another broadcast. Like the first time we stopped broadcasting the joint broadcast on one of our stations was when we carried the first Saints game.
Oh, yeah.
When they had a home game in Giant Stadium in New York. But the Clear Channel stations, they would start programming part of the day themselves and then rejoin the United broadcast. But it went on for several weeks in some form or fashion.
I remember oh my God, it's strange what you remember, but I actually remember the conversation in the hallway of who was going to the airport to get Bobby Hebert.
Yep, because he was coming in to do the Saints pregame.
Yep.
And he landed in New Orleans, and someone had to bring him to Baton Rouge.
Last one before I get you out of here, and I appreciate you reminiscing for a couple minutes. 20 years after the fact, and we're just wrapping up the Nat Geo documentary. 20 minutes after the fact, how much have we forgotten about just how unbelievably tragic and graphic and gruesome that whole storm was?
A lot of it's coming rushing back because I've been doing so many interviews in preparation for all the special coverage we're doing for the 20th anniversary. Some of stuff that I think my brain forced me to forget, other stuff that there just wasn't room to remember. But, in some ways it feels like yesterday. In other ways it feels like it was 200 years ago. But I think like you just had a memory come back constantly. I'm getting hit with those. Oh, God, I remember that now. Or, wow, remember that. And there were so many tragedies, but there were so many stories of rescue and hope and success. Some 1,800 people died in Katrina, but without the Cajun Navy, which, by the way, that's when it was formed from just people from all over the state coming to New Orleans with their boats to go pull people out of attics and off of rooftops, that number would have been far, far, far higher. So we had lots of celebratory moments and lots of very sad moments.
He is WWL's Dave Cohen. Thanks for carving out a couple minutes for me.
Thank you, Punk Kid. Appreciate it.
Okay,
You're back.
we're going to dive right back into another recorded interview, y'all. Jordan with NeuroJust and I recorded yesterday. The story was when WWL came to take over all the stations, or when United Radio was being born, Dave comes banging on the door. And y'all just heard the story on Facebook. JP and I were talking. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know this was happening. And I knew Katrina was going on, but I had no idea it was as bad as it was. And Dave's banging on the door, and I'm like, whoa, you're not taking over Jack, buddy. So I was like, the Punk Kid on the other side of that door was me. And so that's where he got Punk Kid from.
Oh, okay. Never mind. That's a unique way to spell Jordan. He got a U in his name.
He does have a U in his name.
Huh. All right, so that's what we'll do. We don't even want to bump. Want to just go straight into it?
Right into it.
Okay.
You can bump it.
Okay.
So I want to say that's 7 minutes, 40 seconds?
Yep. Well, 7:28 actually.
Okay. Yeah, 5 seconds of bump will get you done. Or not if it's fucking forever. One of the overlooked stories of the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina was the mental health angle. So many people going down that PTSD route, so many people finding themselves in an absolutely hopeless situation. Joining us to talk about this, we got Jordan Generes from NeuroJust on with us. Jordan, how are you, man?
Great. How you doing, Brian? Thanks for having me on such a great episode that you're going to be doing here.
We're already rocking and rolling, and got a heck of a lot more to come. But I appreciate you hopping on board because I feel like this is an undertold story. Walk me through a little bit about PTSD and how it can reveal itself after a tragedy.
Yeah. So, PTSD is typically, the trauma that's associated with PTSD is usually the beginning of kind of a change in the chemistry of the brain, or not just the chemistry, but the physical activity of the brain. And that's what we see. We see the results of trauma on a daily basis when we're treating depression, anxiety. The hard thing is, you can't really undo the trauma that's happened, right? So what you need to do is actually treat the results of the trauma, the imbalance in the brain that happens from that trauma that throws you into that sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, habit that your brain ends up falling in when you end up suffering with long-term depression, anxiety. They're two different diagnoses, but they go hand in hand.
So yeah, a lot of parallels between the two.
Right.
And if there's parallels between the two and how it reacts within your brain, I would imagine there would be parallels between the two with how to treat it and how to, have a metaphorical hand to pull them out of the funk.
Yeah, and I think there's different thought processes on what you should be doing with these patients. Some people want to try to get patients to overcome the trauma initially, but what I find is most common in our patients is the way the brain is working now that you are in a depressed and anxious state. It doesn't allow the therapy or the trauma therapy that you're trying to accomplish or trying to get through. It doesn't allow it to take hold because the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is helping you process, helping you move past the trauma, accept it, move past it. It's just not working like it should. So, in my practice, what we see is we fix the results of the trauma first on the brain, and then it allows you to work with somebody that's very skilled at doing trauma therapy to actually get results for the trauma therapy. It just seems to me like it's better to fix the results, the injury, on the brain, and then you can work through what caused the injury.
When it comes to mental health, is it similar to physical health in that an early diagnosis is always better? I asked this, Jordan. By the way, Jordan Generes from NeuroJust is our guest. I asked this because right before Katrina, New Orleans saw 9 suicides per 100,000 residents. In the years after Katrina, that number ticked up to 26 per. I mean, a lot of people went down a really, really bad path. So how do you sniff that out and sniff it out early?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I would 100% agree with those figures just based off of what I see in my practice, especially in the Metairie location. Most of my patients started antidepressant therapies in 2006 is usually like the first antidepressant they ever took. They always struggle with some level of depression, anxiety, probably at a younger age, they tell me, but it never really manifested into something where they went to seek treatment until after basically the world was pulled out underneath them, right? So I think, number one, recognizing in yourself, it's very hard when you're trapped in that state of mind to recognize it in yourself. But also, having loved ones that pay attention, just seeing that you're more withdrawn, seeing that you're not engaging in life like you used to. But the earlier, the better, right? The quicker you can get on top of this, the better. I think therapy is a great first line option. Starting to talk through those problems, I think that's a great first line. If you need antidepressants, they can help situational depression, probably more so than long-term depression. We don't really see the long-term benefits with antidepressants, but the short-term situational depression can be benefit there. But yeah, the quicker you can get treatment and get evaluated, the better.
I got to ask what y'all specialize that applies here. TMS, when it comes to something like PTSD, I know I just threw out a whole bunch of letters right there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to treating PTSD, I mean, what y'all specialize in, does it show the same effects?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, trauma itself, the PTSD itself, the results of it are almost always depression and anxiety. So our treatment is indicated for the treatment of depression and anxiety. So the best way to treat it, in my opinion, is to work backwards, right? First, address the results of the trauma, which is an imbalance in the brain, right? And all we do is stimulate very precisely, very gently. We stimulate the part of the brain that's underactive. It's the part that dismisses these negative intrusive thoughts, allows you to come out of this constant fight or flight, constant battling of negative thoughts, and just provides peace and clarity in the brain. Now, when you have that peace and clarity, when you can make these decisions better, when you're not inundated with every little, even unrealistic fear or problem, and now you're just dealing with the problems that are in front of you because you have peace and clarity in your brain, then therapy can work so much better at exploring that trauma. And that's where some of the newer even like the psychedelic type treatments that are out there, and ketamine and some other things can help you explore trauma a little bit better. But what I find is it doesn't work the opposite way. You can't actually work through the trauma unless you deal with the depression, anxiety first.
Unbelievable stuff. Neurojust.com is the website, neurojust.com. He's Jordan Generes. Man, I appreciate you hopping on board this morning.
Thanks a lot for having me, Brian. This is a great thing you're doing, and I love that y'all are covering such a momentous occasion in our lives, and something that's affected so many people down here in South Louisiana.
Yeah, it's part of our history. It's who we are. So we'll talk to you soon, Jordan.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Nailed that shit. Huh? Huh?
Good.
Whoo! Is Condon here tonight?
I don't know. I don't hear him. Usually I hear him by now. Kelly Schulz, 7:15. We're rolling, man. Oh, I forgot to print my notes. Ugh. What the heck, man?
get the emergency message again? Thank you.
Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength, rivaling the intensity of Hurricane Camille of 1969. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks, perhaps longer. At least one half of well-constructed homes will have roof and wall failure. All gabled roofs will fail, leaving those homes severely damaged or destroyed. The majority of industrial buildings will become non-functional.
That was the sound from the emergency alert system the night before Hurricane Katrina hit. 7:05, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Hour 2 coming your way right now as we take a look back 20 years later, post-Katrina. We've had a couple good conversations already. Got 2 more on tap for this hour. Kelly Schulz from Nolan Company going to join us in our next segment. Let's talk about 20 years worth of rebuild. New Orleans, built to host, right? Well, how about rebuilt to host? Because a lot has gone on to put that city back where it is right now. Ed Bush, now with the Red Cross, formerly National Guard. Long and the short of his story, first man in, last man out of the Superdome as a shelter of last resort for Hurricane Katrina. He saw a couple things. He's got some stories to tell, and we're going to tell them. That's all coming up this hour. Right now, though, we start off with top stories and trending.
Number 5.
The West Baton Rouge Fire Protection District No. 1 board voted to abolish a full-time fire chief position from the parish classification plan. Instead, they will move forward with retired State Fire Marshal Butch Browning in a part-time role.
Number 4.
Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser broke the news on this show Wednesday morning. Now it's officially official. Louisiana will once again have a float in the 2026 Tournament of Roses Parade in Pasadena, California. This year's float theme is Gulf to Gumbo, highlighting the state's seafood industry. American Idol runner-up and Addis native John Foster will provide the mid-parade entertainment.
Number 3.
Crews have begun pouring the bridge deck for the new City Park Lake Bridge, marking a key step forward as progress continues on the first stage of the I-10 widening project near the University Lakes. DOTD officials said yesterday this phase includes widening the westbound bridge, local roadway modifications, and corridor improvements between City Park Lake and Perkins Road.
Number 2.
South Korea-based manufacturing company S&T is investing $59.4 million to build their first U.S. consolidated manufacturing facility on the other side of the river. This will be in West Baton Rouge Parish. The facility will create 275 new direct jobs, 418 indirect jobs with its construction.
Number 1.
Heading out to the tropics, we are looking relatively clear on this, the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. There is one blip on the radar, though. A tropical wave is forecast to emerge off the west coast of Africa on Sunday. As of right now, it's got a 30% chance of becoming a named storm over the next 7 days. That number is up 10% from the previous numbers. What you got there, boss?
Well, of course, today is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina making landfall.
That's
Yep.
So, Dave Cohen interview. I could just play that thing back on repeat.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, though, because what we're still going to hear from Kelly, from Ed Bush, from Matt Kennedy, this is where it's going to be. It took us right back in the moment, didn't it?
Yep. It really did.
Man. Punk kid.
Punk kid, yeah.
I don't know why I termed it like that, but
man.
it is what it is. Dave's awesome. He is. All right.
And while most of today's attention will be on Katrina's anniversary, it is also Labor Day weekend, which means tons of people on the road.
Yeah, very heavily traveled holiday weekend. I don't know how many folks are leaving at some point during the day to head towards South Carolina for LSU Clemson tomorrow. Tell you what, though, if they are, always a reminder that Top Stories and Trending brought to you by the Baton Rouge Metro Airport.
Hey, there we go.
If it's not too late if you want to grab a flight. So
that's right.
flybtr.com for that. But no, if you're hitting the road this weekend, please be careful. It's always Labor Day weekend is one of those road travel holidays, a lot more so than the air travel holiday.
Yes, indeed. And keeping it local, if you aren't going out of town this weekend, maybe it'd be a time to stop at Breck's Baton Rouge Zoo because they welcomed its first Dama Gazelle calf at the zoo. The male calf was born on August 16th.
Okay.
So that's...
I did not know there were
stuff.
different types of gazelles. I like when the zoo gets specific.
This one looks beautiful. This is a cool looking gazelle. Man.
It's always cool when the animal's born like in your zoo.
Yeah.
You know? It's because you know it's gonna stay, right? It's got to.
That's right.
All right,
something unique.
It is. It really is. 710 at Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Before we take our next break, want to remind you about the folks over at Vex European. Check them out online at vexeuropean.com. VEX Vex European. That's V as in Vinny. Yeah, Vinny's the guy that owns the place. Imagine that. If you drive a European vehicle, what you need is specialization. Why? Because when you made that investment into that European vehicle, you wanted performance and longevity. You get both when you use Vex European. You get performance because they have master level technicians making sure that any repairs you need are done to perfection. Longevity because once you go to Vex European, they follow your car's history, just like your doctor keeps your chart. They will get to know everything that's been done, everything that needs to be done, and everything that will need to be done when it's time. It's a special relationship. I use Vex European. I highly recommend you do too. If you want to see if your car's make is one that they service, hit up vexeuropean.com. Quick break. Kelly Schulz is next. I'll be right back. I got to get some of the printer.
Patrick says that sounded like Joshua from War Games. What is that reference to? Is War Games a movie? I know there was... what was the name of that other movie? It might have been by the same name. War Games. Okay. I like the reference here. Not familiar with this movie. Most I'm finding that most Matthew Broderick movies I'm not familiar with. See, he was in here as well. If that's the 1983 movie you're talking about. Shall we play a game? Keith, I'm all for it, man. I just didn't know with the extent of today's show topics if we would do it. But yeah, I'm up for it. Let's go. Studio. Yes, ma'am. We'll have you up here shortly. Thank you. We're about to be coming back in. And yeah, Kelly's on the phone as well, so she's ready. All right, let's see.
Ooh, we're running early. That's never the case. All right. 7:13 to Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. One of the many aspects of the rebuild after Katrina that I wanted to take a look at today was the tourism industry. Down in New Orleans with New Orleans and Company, they tout the phrase, the mantra "built to host." I think rebuilt to host might be a little more apropos after Katrina and the 20 years since. Joining us now to chat about it, we've got Kelly Schulz on from New Orleans and Company. How are you this morning?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing very well as well. Kelly, let me just open the floor up to whatever you think is going to be like the biggest part of this conversation. You want a more recap or where do you want to start?
Well, first I want to say thank you to your listeners in Baton Rouge and to all those who really took New Orleanians in and did so much generosity and kindness in the aftermath of the storm 20 years ago. It's really remarkable if you think about what people throughout Louisiana and Texas and the country did to take care of our citizens at their time of need. And, it's sort of an emotional day for us. I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and this anniversary can I know bring back a lot of painful memories for a lot of people. We're certainly reflecting on the loss of life and all of the damage in homes and businesses destroyed. But when it comes to our tourism industry, we also have a lot to be proud of, and a lot that has occurred in the past 20 years that has really been a remarkable turnaround.
You mentioned the Baton Rouge end on that one, and yes, if I could just be honest, 20 years later, we cursed y'all in traffic a lot. It got, it got thick.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but no, again, another one of those little memories that pops up along the way. Okay, so you're a New Orleans native.
Yes.
So tell me your Katrina story as the storm was coming. What was your personal journey?
Well, I was actually living and working in Dallas, Texas at that time.
Okay.
And but my family was here. I grew up in St. Bernard Parish, and my family evacuated, thank goodness, because they were in St. Bernard Parish, which was completely underwater. And at that time I said I'm never going to go to New Orleans ever again. I had been living and working in Dallas for a while, and I said I'm never going to go to New Orleans again. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see my hometown, this beautiful place that is mangled and destroyed. And a couple months later, I got a call about coming to work in New Orleans at New Orleans and Company to promote tourism. And I initially said no. I was like, thank you, but no, I can't even imagine ever being there again, let alone to promote tourism. And so I then had an extraordinary thing happen, and I met by accident the very firefighter who searched my family home. And I figured that was a sign that I needed to take this job and come on back home. So I did. I moved back to New Orleans 6 months after Katrina to work with the team that was rebuilding the tourism economy. It was difficult, but I'm so glad that I did it.
We got Kelly Schulz from New Orleans and Company talking about 20 years worth of rebirth, growth, and innovation since Hurricane Katrina. Okay, so the storm rolls through, devastation everywhere. Talk to me a little bit from a tourism perspective about what was the plan at that point for like putting things back together and then getting back to reselling the city? Because you can't sell the city if there's no city to sell. So how did that map itself out?
Well, first of all, there was no plan for a disaster of this magnitude.
Right.
There was no one we could call to say, how did you guys rebuild your most important industry when your city was 80% underwater for months? And when those images were replayed in the international media for months. And so we knew that there was not going to be a recovery without tourism and culture. And we knew, frankly, that there's not any United States of America without New Orleans and all of its contributions to this country. So we knew that we had to rebuild. And, the other challenge was that you had the French Quarter that was dry and relatively unscathed. You had neighborhoods like where my family lived that were underwater. Mm-hmm. But then you had, the core of the downtown area with three of our most iconic buildings, including the Caesars Superdome, the Convention Center, and the Hyatt Hotel that were scenes of terrible devastation. And so it was to say it was a brand challenge was an understatement. We had to cancel $2 billion in convention business. It's very hard for us as hospitality professionals to say, I'm sorry, you can't come here now, but we had to say that. But when we did welcome back visitors and welcome back conventions, it was a pretty emotional moment, and it was also the sign that our economy was going to get started back again.
From a hotel perspective, was there anything you had to turn away a lot of people because the city wasn't in working order, but at the same time, though, recovery workers were filling hotel rooms for some time.
That's exactly right. The hotels that were open were hosting a lot of the recovery workers, insurance personnel, things like that. You also had a large number of people who came into the city for what we call voluntourism. So individuals who came to with a church group or with a convention group and said, while we're here, we're going to rebuild a church or a playground. I mean, we had some college kids from the Northeast who gutted my childhood home. So the outpouring of generosity and support, many of those individuals were the ones who were staying in our hotels. But as time went on, the Katrina happened in '05. The Hyatt Regency didn't reopen until 2011, but it opened after a $275 million renovation and made it spectacular. You've got hotels like the Ritz-Carlton, the Roosevelt, that reopened bigger and better than what they were before. We've had new hotels open in the community, brands like Virgin and the Four Seasons. Caesars is now part of our downtown landscape. So there's been a lot of investment, a lot of improvements, a lot of new hotels. And of course, when people are in our hotels, that means a lot of people in restaurants and museums and music clubs and driving our economy, which is very much based on tourism and culture.
I'm glad you mentioned restaurants on the back end of that, because with the major infrastructure, with the Caesars Superdome, with the Montreal Convention Center, and with the hotels, you're talking about major dollars going into major, and with the hotels, major brands making their recommitment. When it comes to the restaurant scene, this is where New Orleans is world-renowned, but at the same time, though, you're talking individual families.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Many of our restaurants were devastated in the neighborhoods, and but the restaurant industry recovery was also a really was a powerful symbol of resilience, I think, and a testament to the spirit of New Orleans. So even if restaurants were destroyed, you had restaurateurs who were out there providing food to volunteers. They were saying, we're going to rebuild no matter what. I mean, and if you think about where we were 20 years ago, now there are so many incredible restaurants in this community, new restaurants, new talents, winning James Beard Awards. We're pursuing Michelin stars through the Michelin Guide to the American South. It's really been remarkable to see the resurgence of this industry, and food is so much a part of who we are. It's such a comfort, and it was one of those things economically and emotionally that was critical to the recovery.
And it was the rebuild on that front was, you mentioned the James Beard Award. I got to ask about, Dookie Chase in Treme. That's got to be a much tougher rebuild, bringing that back to life than, say, Commanders, based just strictly off location and how much damage it took.
Exactly. I mean, each individual, and Commanders and Dookie Chase are part of, iconic New Orleans restaurant royalty. But they came back. And I mean, speaking of the James Beard Awards, this year, actually, Dookie Chase won a James Beard American Classic Award, which is a pretty prestigious honor, and it celebrates restaurants that are deeply rooted in their community, their culture, and have stood the test of time, right? And the late, great chef Leah Chase was actually honored. I mean, going back to the civil rights movement in America and what her restaurant did there and how that place has evolved and emerged from Katrina. They deserve every honor they've been given. And Chef Chase is memorialized in the Disney attraction Princess Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is, Princess Tiana is a Disney character, but she's also a restaurateur, and she was inspired by Chef Leah Chase. And so now that attraction goes on at Disney World and gives millions of people who visit Disney a chance to experience New Orleans culture and hopefully inspire them to come visit us.
Let's talk about a couple moments along the way before we get to the real. I mean, y'all have a highlight reel of what's landed in New Orleans since that is just, when you talk about rebuilding a resume, it's beyond compare. But a couple of those early highlights, let's talk about 2006 specifically. The return to the Superdome reopens, Steve Gleason blocks the punt, Saints beat the Falcons. How big was that from a national and international perspective?
I'm actually standing in the Superdome right now as I talk to you.
Oh.
And I was also here that night in 2006 for the punt. And it's been 20 years and I still get goosebumps thinking about it. There was a lot of controversy about, should we rebuild the Superdome so quickly when there are so many neighborhoods that were destroyed? Yep. And our leaders said, yes, we have to give people hope. We have to show that if we can rebuild this gigantic facility that is so important and iconic to our city, that we know we're going to be okay. And the Saints were so much a part of that recovery. And in that moment, at that game, you could feel the relief, and you can hear tens of thousands of New Orleanians who had been through hell say, we're going to be okay. And since then, if you think about what has occurred in this building with billions of dollars of improvements, we just had our 8th Super Bowl in this building. We've had Taylor Swift. I mean, the massive activity that has gone on here and improvements, it's really remarkable.
From a New Orleanians perspective, that moment meant so much. And by the way, can I take just a moment to say never forget Curtis DeLoach? We all know Steve Gleason blocked the thing. Curtis DeLoach recovered it for the touchdown, and his name is never, ever mentioned. So
That's true. I'll tell you, that whole game, there were so many incredible moments. You know, another thing I think about in 2006 was that first Mardi Gras. That was really important to us as New Orleanians to be able to host that Mardi Gras. And I remember people saying, well, how can we come back and party for Mardi Gras when so many people are suffering? And we said, because the people who are suffering are the ones throwing the party. We need to have Mardi Gras. We need to have that cultural release, that celebration, and we want people to come back and join us, and they did. So Mardi Gras 2006 was also a huge part of the recovery.
And the same is true of Jazz Fest. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, was it after Katrina that the tradition started that Jazz Fest would close with a local? Because I was there. I saw Harry Connick Jr., Alan Toussaint, and Dr. John all on stage at the same time.
I think that's right. And, you know, Jazz Fest continues to grow in popularity. And again, the returning of those festivals was critical. Returning conventions, we had to cancel $2 billion in convention business in September of 2005. Yeah. Imagine having to make that business decision. Again, there was no model for a disaster of this magnitude. And so in June of 2006, we welcomed back the first citywide convention, which was the American Library Association. And not only did they let people know that the city was back open for convention business, they went into our city's libraries and helped rebuild. And they did volunteer projects all over our community. And they were some of the early pioneers of what we call volunteerism today, with people coming in to do rebuilding and community service projects to help us, not only by bringing their events here, but by really rolling up their sleeves and doing physical rebuilding throughout our community.
We got about 3.5 minutes left with Kelly Schulz, and I swear it's not going to be enough. But we all know a lot of the major sports highlights along the way. I do want to ask you, though, and I hate to bring up this big blemish on such a remarkable record, but when the lights went out at halftime after Beyonce's performance, did everybody just shudder saying, oh, here we are on a worldwide stage?
We did. That was a tough moment.
Yeah.
And that was at the Super Bowl that we hosted in 2013. Mm-hmm. I was also in the Superdome for that moment. I will tell you that it looked a lot worse on TV than it did being here in person. Okay. It did, yeah. But that was obviously was a disappointing moment. But I will tell you that we just hosted Super Bowl 59 at the Caesars Superdome in February of this year, and it was our first time hosting since that game in 2013, and it was spectacular.
It was, yeah.
It was spectacular. If you think about, there are so many people associated with the NFL, athletes, so many people that I've talked to that have said, we wish New Orleans could do Super Bowl every year. Yeah. You guys have great weather. You're walkable. You know how to do events. You're built to host, as you said earlier. Mm-hmm. So, Super Bowls, we just had our 11th Super Bowl. No other city has had that many except for Miami.
Got a couple men's Final Fours there. Got a women's Final Four. Got 3 NBA All-Star games, 2 WrestleManias. The list goes on and on. But we need to keep it moving because we've only got 2 minutes left. Let's talk about some of the other projects that were born after Katrina, not rebuilt, but just built.
Well, one thing that's happened, we talked about the billions of dollars of investments in hotels, the convention center, the Caesars Superdome. We're also seeing lots of growth at the New Orleans airport. We opened a new airport terminal in 2019. Not many cities can say they have a brand new airport terminal, and that's been such a success. The airport is now looking at plans for what's going to happen in the next 20 years for growth and expansion. If our tourism industry keeps going the way it is. In 2024, we had a record-breaking number of visitors, which was 19 million. We haven't seen those numbers since 2019, which was before COVID.
Yep.
So the trajectory is there, and Carnival Cruise Line is bringing in new ships. We are, continuing to welcome major events. There's major transformation happening along our riverfront with the River District and the Riverfront for All Park. So a lot of exciting, big transformational projects are underway.
That's where we're going to have to pick it up next time. She is Kelly Schulz from New Orleans & Company. Thank you so much for a couple minutes and walking down the memory lane with us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. Coming up on 7:30 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. We got news, traffic, weather coming your way in just a little bit. Battle on the Bluff going on again tonight out at A.W. Mumford Stadium. It's Jamboree time, y'all, which means high school football time is right around the corner. But not too late to get your tickets for tonight's games for Battle at the Bluff. Get them at talk1073.com if you're not, walking up to the ticket booth itself. Here's news. All right. So try and do a professional show when last night was a fantasy football draft, and everybody in the damn chat wants to chime off on whose roster sucks. Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're out of New Orleans still with. Oh. Oh. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. What? Okay. You got a big ass building off Sherwood Common, man. Okay. 738 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Been looking forward to this next interview for some time now. I want to welcome to the studio. He's with the American Red Cross now. At the time, he was with the National Guard. Ed Bush was inside the Superdome. Last man out the dome, basically.
Pretty much.
When it came to the shelter of last resort during Hurricane Katrina. Ed, welcome to Talk 107.3. How are you, man?
Good morning. I'm good. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you on here. We took some time debating whether or not we were going to lean in on the 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
Because and you were actually a part of that decision because the Nat Geo documentary really brought back to mind just how awful that was. Just the stark images of bodies floating in water, the overcrowding at both the Dome and the Convention Center. You forget that time heals all wounds.
It was my first thought as well. I was excited to start watching, and then 15 minutes or so into episode 1, I was like, okay, we're gonna pause.
Yeah.
I'll resume this maybe tomorrow, because my first thought was, oh, I'd forgotten how bad it was.
Yeah,
and it all just comes rushing back.
Can you close that chapter mentally? Do you even want to?
I don't think so. That's a great question, because based on what I do now, I'm still in the disaster response business.
Yeah.
There are a lot of my friends who were part of the Katrina recovery response in the Guard who are now also still in emergency response.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, because you would think we would have had enough of that after Katrina.
Right.
And just to move on to something completely different. Yet here we are. So I don't think I want to completely close it. I want to compartmentalize it.
Yes.
Because Katrina stories are the ones that are going to get me choked up and get me emotional. But I don't think I want to seal that off. I think it's defining who I am.
Well, we'll revert back to the documentary in a little bit.
Yeah.
And you were a big part of the documentary as well. But let's start back with, let's begin the story. A little bit about yourself. Where you from? How'd you end up being, the guy on the scene in the Dome?
Yeah, so born in Chicago, grew up in Wisconsin, met a Southern girl from Louisiana at my first military school. Story about a boy and a girl, moved to New Orleans and got married.
Yeah.
And then never left. Yeah, we've been married and I've lived in Louisiana now 32 years. Brought three kids here. So then they all say y'all. So I think we're natives now. Yeah, great opportunity to join the Louisiana National Guard at a young age, full-time for the Guard, and you can't really spend a day in the Louisiana National Guard without cutting your teeth on a disaster. Guard has a huge role in Louisiana responding to disasters. So, yeah, pretty early on, I got exposed to disaster response, and when Katrina hit, I was the Deputy Public Affairs Officer, so tried to just work with the media as much as we could just to tell them what the Guard was doing and get the story straight and the facts straight and all that. So when the Superdome opened up pretty last minute as a shelter of last resort, I had someone from my team drop me off at the Superdome because the Guard was there starting to do that initial entry stuff. And the media showed up wanting to know, hey, what's the Guard doing? And so that's time for me to go to work. And off we go.
Okay, so you get to the Superdome. What was the Guard doing?
Yeah, it was largely just helping to assist with screening people into the Dome, which really meant, hey, you can't bring weapons. And it was pretty much that. Because we just wanted to and there was a lot of people in line. So just assisting with that and helping to get people situated once they came in. had a loose plan on where we wanted to put people and where we wanted to put families and where you wanted to put people with babies and infants and all of that. For the most part, everyone just kind of sat in the stands. So just working with the Dome, coordinating with them and saying, how do we want to do this? Because there's 30,000 people coming this way.
Right. And the Dome's a big place. There's a lot of rooms. There's a lot of area that's not, we're posted up on the 35-yard line. There's a lot of Superdome that's not that.
Yep.
Which, when you think 30,000 people in one shelter, that's huge. But the Dome, I mean, it's ginormous.
Yeah, and it's funny looking back. We had representatives from the NFL there, representatives from the Superdome there, and the rules that were initially, stay off the field, let's try to keep people in the stands, let's stay out of the boxes, stay out of the media areas. Yeah, all that went away 3 days into it once everything had changed.
Okay, and as far as the shelter of last resort is concerned, that was, I would guess the initial plan would have been based off of let the storm roll through and then everybody go back home. Things changed when 80% of the city goes underwater.
Right.
Which meant y'all were going to be there longer.
Yeah, and we didn't, that's where you really, the viewpoint from the Dome was, hey, we survived the storm, and everybody was in a pretty good mood. You had the panel come off the roof, but by and large, it was successful. We rode out the storm, and everyone in here is safe.
Yeah.
And then we started to see the water rising from our vantage point outside. A lot of people were immediately wanting to go and to leave, and we didn't forbid anyone from leaving, certainly, but we told people, be safe, because there's probably a good chance you might end up back here because we don't know what the conditions are outside. So, yeah, we could see water rising and watch cars disappear from view, and at that time we didn't know where that was all coming from. We had a hunch, but we had no idea how bad it was going to be.
You said you had a loose plan going in. How do you morph? How do you change? How do you shift on the fly? And as that liaison, how do you keep the people not from revolting?
Yeah, I think that's the trick of all leadership at all levels of go with your plan, but be prepared to pivot as needed. And we had some good people there in the Superdome that were really good at that. And I think it's pretty important early on to keep it simple, and let's figure out the very, very basics of, okay, if we can't leave here for a while, then how long can we stay, and what do we need to do to extend that visit? So, yeah, your objectives get dramatically simpler when the conditions have dramatically and significantly changed around you, and now you're just trying to keep people safe and keep people alive, and the follow-on things start to happen in real time because a lot of times you don't have the information that you need.
Right. We got Ed Bush with us. He was with the National Guard during Hurricane Katrina, and basically last man out the Dome before it was all said and done. Hey, start to finish, how long was it before the Dome was cleared?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a little over a week.
Yeah.
By the time it's fully all clear and we can get all the equipment out of there, it seemed an eternity for certain, for everyone who was there from start to finish.
Do not worry about getting dark or gross or whatever. How bad did it get?
Yeah, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, which is an odd thing to say, because all you heard was the worst of how bad it was. The living conditions were horrible, for certain. You've got 30,000 people, and then you've got a double that population. So I think we were pushing 40,000, 50,000 at the peak, and there's no running water and there's no bathrooms. So I mean that's the first thing is, how are you living with that as a reality?
Right.
So of course the air became unbreathable. It was stagnant. I'll never get the smell out of my nose.
Right.
And yet there we all were. So it was really, really bad. But at the same point, you saw people hanging in there through all of that and bonding and holding each other and getting through it together. So to me, that was the most remarkable, which is why I say it was the best of times and the worst of times, because I have examples of the most caring examples of humanity just taking care of each other through the worst of times. I got to see and live firsthand the power of people just pulling each other through, which was remarkable.
Now let's add in the media and talking with them, because this is where it's tough. The national media, international media doesn't want to hear about the story of those helping each other pull through. They've got the stark images of what looks like a third world country at the time, and that's the story they want to tell. How do you tamp that down while telling the full story.
You can't. Is the takeaway lesson for me? It becomes so big that you're just doing damage control. Still today, I tell people I was in the Superdome during Katrina, and they gasp.
Yeah.
And I immediately say, well, it wasn't all that. I mean, it was bad. And then they kind of lose interest. So the reality of it is, once the story is so big and so bad, you can't undo that. Which to me, I think, why still to this day, part of why I'm here is let's just do the best we can to get it right. So you can try to patch it up, but yeah, you just have to peck at it.
All right. One of my favorite quotes of all time is a Mark Twain quote. A lie can get halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on. There were stories of a lot of crime, a lot of rape from within the dome. Did any of that actually happen?
So here's my favorite fact. We had more babies born in the dome than we had people die in the dome. And that blew my mind. But I would see a physician, one of the many physicians who were there, and they were all set up in the arena, and that became the medical center. And I would see him where we would stop and get coffee, or he was outside having a smoke, and I was like, how's your day? And he's like, two babies today. So I kind of lost count, but I know we're tracking. We had 5 people die in the dome. 1 overdose, 1 suicide, and 3 of them they just weren't in good health. And we had 8 babies born in the dome that I know of. Come to find out, it's a phenomenon. People, a significant traumatic weather event induces labor, and people weren't supposed to have their baby, and now they're having their baby. And that blows people's mind. And to me, that's my favorite way to answer that question.
Positive. I mean,
Yeah.
it's still tragic, but it's if you could pull any kind of silver lining out of it, that would be it.
The other story that I like to tell that kind of addresses the question of tell me about all the crime. And all day, every day, we would just walk around, and me and my team, and talk to people. And me and my team became aware of a young man who'd been beaten up pretty bad. He was in a bad place. What happened to him? And basically, we were told we caught him trying to put his hands on a little girl. So to me, the takeaway was the people in the dome were putting up with any of that foolishness. They were in there with their families and their kids. And they kind of set the rules of conduct, which were, we know there's a lot of people in here that might not be of the best interest but we're not putting up with any of that foolishness. So it was kind of some street justice.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me smile, and I was sort of proud of them, because I was like, that's the way it's got to be.
Sure.
So yeah, there wasn't this lawlessness inside the Superdome because the families and the people inside the dome weren't putting up with that.
Unbelievable
Yeah.
stuff. We're going to take a break here in about 2 minutes from right now. We're going to come back for a good 4 minutes on the back end to clear, put a bow on a couple of things. I do want to ask you about the way that the National Guard was perceived through the lens of the camera.
Yeah.
The perception was from the outside looking in like a heavy military presence.
Yeah.
Keeping everything on lockdown. Like it was more of a invader type of, than it was a cooperative type of situation. What were the relationships really like inside? Did you have to be heavy-handed?
Nowhere near as much as it was portrayed. There were times where it was you're like, ooh, this is a little bit dicey. It feels a little tense tonight. But part of the challenge and part of the problem was we had so many National Guard units coming from across the country, and God love them and God bless them for coming, because we needed all the help we could get. But they were also kind of misinformed. The environment that they were walking into was different than what it actually was on the ground from what they were told. So they came braced with mission number 1 was to lock it down and provide law and order, as we kind of missed the humanitarian side of an opportunity. But they did great. But when you wind up the military and you put them in action and you give them weapons, you put them on the street and you say, go restore law and order, they're going to do that.
Right.
So you get what you pay for sometimes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break right here. We'll come back on the back end. We've got Ed Bush with us. He was in the National Guard and basically last man out the Superdome after Katrina, and it was a shelter of last resort. Let's talk about getting buses to the people, continuing that message not just with the people that were there, but with the rest of the world as well.
Yeah.
Ed Bush, we will continue next. Oh, no. Just hit. Sorry.
Because I'm noticing
Yeah, no, I know. I wanted the time back. I'll make them good. Well, shit. This is the last weekday of the month, isn't it? I'm not gonna be able to make them good. That's my fault. I'll clear it up on the affidavit. We're not supposed to do that. Contractually, we're supposed to hit a report called Your Money Now, which is 60 seconds worth of the market and then a 60-second commercial. And I would rather talk to you.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
by the way, we're still on Facebook Live. So.
Oh, cool. You know, the military. I don't feel like I portrayed the military. It's tricky because I came from there and stuff. But I'm waiting for someone from the Guard to say, "Hey, you didn't do us any favors with some of the stuff you said." But no one has, and maybe they won't. Maybe I'm just a little bit hypersensitive. But I do think, in general, Honoré put it really, really well. If be very, very careful when you activate the military and you put them on the street. You're sending the tone of everything changes pretty dramatically.
Yeah,
we're not by nature. If you put me in uniform and give me a gun, I'm not by nature a humanitarian.
No.
Yeah, and that's not why that's not why you're putting me on the street. But
when you're there 24/7, like the human side is going to creep back out a little bit.
And I think for everyone from it does. So yeah, I think you need some time on the ground. There's you hope that a lot of those things happen. But for every Guard unit that came from somewhere else that wasn't from Louisiana, they didn't have that. These are my people.
Right.
Feel like they didn't start there.
Well, and
some of them probably weren't thrilled to be coming. You know, they've been ordered to come, and it's tricky. And I don't think we want to get super into it because the Guard showed up and the Guard had a huge.
We're only
going
to have 4 minutes, so we can't get super into any. Well, I want to talk about the buses and getting people to adapt to the plan as the plan changed. So
sure.
But yeah, with the documentary with General Honoré yelling at people to put their guns down.
Yeah.
Like something that simple it makes a world of difference.
Yes.
It's like the perception wise is, and that's why I asked about being an invader versus being cooperative. Is like the perception is, are they here to control us or are they here to help us?
And I've definitely heard people that said no, they were here absolutely to control us, and I was like, oh, it's not what. But I'm sure there was a lot of military that came with that attitude.
Well, especially those that heard the misinformation before getting to the scene.
That's what they're reading, and that's what they're preparing.
You
to walk
have to
into.
be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for the worst when you walk in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's no fault of theirs.
No.
So.
Yeah, it's. I think that's all part of the media misinformation. I think that's all part of. Well, not just the media.
Do we know who was guilty? Like who was the source of the misinformation?
I was amazed, and obviously I can't say it on the air. But I was very surprised that Eddie Compass said.
Okay. Yeah. He said
about the sniper.
He said that in the documentary. You're not repeating something or you're not breaking something that hadn't been said yet. He said that in the doc.
Yeah.
We hop back in.
Yeah. No, that's not.
7:55 at Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. We got just a couple minutes left with Ed Bush. He was with the National Guard in the wake of Katrina. He was in the Superdome in the wake of Katrina. And messaging was his job.
Yep.
And that was difficult when, A, communication was damn near impossible.
Yep.
B, you got up to 50,000 people that you're trying to, I don't want to say corral, but you're helping them in every way possible to make sure that they're okay while they're there, but they're getting out of there too. So let's talk about the buses.
Yeah, and it became the number one fact that everybody wanted to know because it represented when are we getting out of here? How are we getting out of here? When are the buses coming? When are the buses coming?
Yes. So you've got to convey a message that you've got no idea if it's going to come to fruition.
That's true. Yeah, because we had nothing to do with how the buses were getting to the Superdome. Inside the dome, we had the plan of where do you want them to pick the people up and what's the best way to get the people there. So it became a matter of what street had the least water. All streets had some water, but we found a path, and we found it by just walking around where the buses could line up. It's a pretty long straight shot. The water wasn't too deep, and we walked people through the New Orleans Center, from the Superdome through the New Orleans Center. Take a left here, take a left here, take a right here, go down out this street, and there was the buses. and it worked. And
So
we
headed
did
towards
it.
the river.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It just so happened that was a good path for as many buses as possible to line up on. And that's where we started walking people through. But it took days to get to that point. So to your point, I had to tell people we're working on it.
Yeah.
They're working on it. Hang in there. And for some time, that was the message of the day. Hang in there.
Yeah. How difficult is that to say, like, let's say you tell them the buses will be here, on X day, buses don't show up by that day.
So, and I never did that. Right?
Okay.
And I knew that early on. I wasn't going to commit to a specific day. I would tell them this is what we're working towards. The talking points of the day tended to be very simple. Number one, if you feel like you're trapped, you can leave at any time. Number two, we do have enough food and water to get through here for weeks. No one's going to starve or not have enough water.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, I'm from here. You're from here. We're all in this here together. None of us are leaving until the last of you is somewhere safe. And number four, I assure you, we're working on a plan to get you out of here as fast as we can. And I will let you know the details of that. And that tended to be the talking points of the day, which were kind of the four big fears.
I've got about a minute and a half left. I got to touch on that Nat Geo documentary, which you were a huge part of. There was a lot of commentary about not being able to leave. You said twice now in this conversation, people were free to leave if they wanted to.
So that became a really, really important part. We didn't want anyone to feel like they were trapped.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time explaining to them, making sure that they knew that the city was under our curfew. There was a chance that if they were out and about, that they would get picked up and be brought back here again. But if you absolutely need to leave because you feel trapped, then go out Gate M and you're free to go.
Mm-hmm.
That became talking point number one because we didn't want anyone to feel like they were trapped. We didn't forbid anyone from leaving. Why would we? But we knew that there was a very, very good chance that they were going to require saving again and be brought back here again. So a lot of people didn't know how bad it was. So sometimes I would ask someone who came on day 3 to talk to someone who arrived pre-storm. And I was like, tell them what your house looks like. Because the people who came in pre-storm didn't know how bad it was. And sometimes it was as simple as someone saying, man, there's nothing out there. Right. It's all gone. And you would see the look of dismay on the person who was hoping that his house was still okay, realizing, no, it wasn't. And suddenly the urgency to leave wasn't quite what it was. But yeah, we didn't forbid anyone from leaving.
But I would imagine the want to put eyes on, even if it's lost,
yeah.
that
everybody wants to go look at your stuff.
Right.
For some people, it's a lot more stuff. For some people, it's like, I don't know where family members are.
Yeah.
I don't know if my mom made it out. I don't know where my grandpa is.
Well, I don't know if they're 8 blocks up the street at the convention center.
And all that breaks your heart.
Yeah.
All day, every day. And there was a lot of hugging and a lot of crying. And a lot of time, in real time, people came to accept the fact that what they thought maybe they had is gone. And I would just call on people to say, tell them what it's like out there.
Yeah.
And then those people would hang around.
And that's where we got to call it. Ed Bush, thank you so much for a couple minutes this morning,
great.
man. Fantastic stuff. 8 o'clock, hour 3's next. Oh, that went by way too fast.
Oh, I know, right?
Good night. That was fantastic. The emergency message.
Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength, rivaling the intensity of Hurricane Camille of 1969. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks, perhaps longer. At least one half of well-constructed homes will have roof and wall failure. All gabled roofs will fail, leaving those homes severely damaged or destroyed. The majority of industrial buildings will become non-functional.
That, of course, an emergency alert message pre-Katrina as the storm was rolling up. In fact, the guy that sent me that message is on a hotline right now. Matt Kennedy, how are you this morning?
I am very good, Brian. How are you?
I am doing well. Interestingly enough, in that message there, wind damage was the number one concern as the storm was approaching. Didn't really play out that way. We'll get to all that in just a quick minute. First of all, I want to start with, oh, by the way, it's hour number 3, Talk 107.3, Brian Haldane, JP. We got you rolling. I want to start with you telling your Katrina story. Just as the storm approached, the adapting to everything on air. Matt was, of course, the morning show host on WJBO for 1 billion years. Walk me through your end of the story.
Well, we were all watching the storm just like everybody else. But to cut to the chase, I remember Saturday going to bed, Saturday the 27th, and watching the Weather Channel, and it was a Cat 3 storm in the Gulf. And I remember waking up Sunday morning, because you couldn't sleep, you know? It's like, I'll check the 4 a.m. coordinates. Then I went back to sleep. Then I woke up, set the alarm, woke up, checked the 7 o'clock coordinates, and a Cat 3 had turned into a Cat 5 overnight. So this is Sunday the 28th. I said to my wife, I'm going to the radio station. She goes, now the storm's out 12, 13, 14 hours? I said, yeah, because it's going to be the worst storm to ever hit New Orleans. So I get in the car, go to the radio station, call, God rest his soul, called Kevin Meeks and said, hey, meet me. I'm going on at 8:30. And we just started talking. We didn't know exactly, any information down in New Orleans at that time as far as what governmental officials were doing. We wondered why there was no evacuation, but that's a different story for a different day. So we start talking, and the clip that you played, Brian, that came across the Associated Press wire at 10:11 a.m. Sunday morning. And I remember 10:11 because Kevin Meeks went and ripped it off the printer and read that. Now, the emergency alert, is it still called emergency? I think it was called emergency broadcast system back then.
Yep.
It went off, and that was the message was like 2.5 minutes. It talked about great loss of life. The area will be uninhabitable for days, if not weeks. It will be suffering on a scale not seen in modern times. That was some of the most apocalyptic language.
Right.
We knew this was getting bad. And then, of course, Mayor Nagin came out and issued the evacuation order, I think around mid-morning on Sunday.
And, of course, that's not nearly enough time to get everybody out of the city. It's certainly not enough time to get those out of the city who aren't capable of getting out of the city on their own.
Brian, I decided around 4 p.m. No, it wasn't 4 p.m. It was more like 6 p.m. Sunday night to go to the house. I said, I'm going to go home, freshen up, get some new clothes, blah, 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 blah. So I never will forget. I knew the back roads, thank goodness. And going eastbound or southbound from Baton Rouge to Prairieville wasn't a problem.
Right.
So I had to snake my way back. I stopped at a gas station and said, how long have you been on the road? Now, they said 7 hours. The gas station was on Highland Road. It took them 7 hours to get from Terrytown to Highland Road. And boy, some people were frustrated, exhausted, worn out. Yeah, that was a royal mistake on the evacuation. People were telling stories on the air about how it took them 19 hours to get to Houston.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Unreal.
Bad.
On all fronts. We're talking with Matt Kennedy. He was at the helm of WJBO at the time. Earlier in the show, we talked with WWL's Dave Cohen about the birth of the United Radio Broadcasters.
Yeah.
What was the Baton Rouge end of that and putting that together?
So WWL, they knew they were going to have problems. The building was beginning to get into serious trouble. Windows were being blown out early on. So, and I think their generator failed, if I'm not mistaken. So they had no studios. They had no ability to get the signal from the studio out to the transmitter site. Normally it's done via like a wireless link, and that link wasn't working. So they packed up and came to Baton Rouge, and we turned what were just small production rooms into studios. And WWL sat right next to us. And then because they had no way to get their signal out of our building when the storm was first arriving, Kevin and I were on WWL most of that overnight. We went back on like at midnight. I think I stopped running my gums around noon the next day, like 12 straight hours. You couldn't drag me out of that chair. But for a while, we broadcast for them, and then they eventually took back over. But, you know, Brian, I want to point out to people that I didn't watch this on television. We had a television in the studio, but because we were running on generator power, we tried to conserve as much electricity as possible. And I never bothered to turn the TV on. But what I learned after the fact was when Katrina first passed, it began to hook to the east, and a lot of that apocalyptic language played out in Mississippi, right? Yeah. Those people got absolutely wind and storm surge crushed. But we thought New Orleans was okay. I remember Dave Cohen and some of the other, Garner and Robinette, saying, you know, it turns out it's not that bad. Well, it looked even more beautiful if you were watching the mainstream media because they didn't know any better. They went and set up in the French Quarter where you're sitting on the highest spot in the bowl. And I never will forget, mid-morning Monday, Dave Cohen said, uh-oh, the industrial canal just broke. I'm not from New Orleans. So I asked my wife, I said, what's the industrial canal? She goes, I don't know. I'm from Metairie, darling. So I said, Dave, what does that mean? He says, the city's going to flood. So I went and got a map. This is pre-Google Maps, okay? I went and got a map, and I'm like, oh, I get it. This water is going to fill the bowl up. And that's when they realized that, I remember the words, oh, we dodged the bullet. They did storm-wise. They did not flood-wise. And when that levee broke, then the concern became how many more will break. Then it was the London Street or London Canal. Yep. And there was another one after that. So I didn't understand anything about the levee system or the flood system because I'm not from there, but boy, I quickly figured it out. And again, didn't see any of this on TV. I didn't see a television until Monday late afternoon, and I was in shock at what I was witnessing. 80% of the city was underwater. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it went Industrial Canal, London Avenue, then 17th Street Canal, and then I think there were like two others after that, but the damage was already done at that point.
Brian, can I add one more thing?
Yes, absolutely.
There's only two times in my life, there's only two times in my life on the radio I've ever felt helpless. One was 9/11. You're sitting there watching it happen live, and you just feel almost a sense of PTSD because you see what's happening and you can't do anything about it. Same thing happened, though, a few days later. We started simulcasting on 102.5. Many of the radio stations in New Orleans weren't on the air, but you could pick up 102.5 in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Brian, we were getting calls from people who were telling us their street address and that they were in the attic or on the roof, and the state police were listening to the radio to know where to go to get people. And I felt helpless, and Kevin said to me, he goes, just imagine if they weren't able to call us and tell us. Wow, that really hit home, you know?
Yeah, and
but
look, it was
just a sense of helplessness.
And meanwhile, with the United Radio broadcasters on the other side, with all the New Orleans folks, they had a separate person. It was the same thing on both. Like we were getting on JBO and FMF, they were getting in New Orleans as well. It got to the point, Matt, and you'll remember this, where the state troopers ended up posting up in studio to relay the information to the helicopters.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that. You're right. Well, people don't understand that texting was in its very infancy. As a matter of fact, that's where I learned how to text. AJ, what was AJ's last name? AJ Appleby? Was that his name?
I think
from
so.
One of the radio stations. Yeah. Anyway, AJ from QUE down in New Orleans. I said something about, man, I'm trying to call my wife and it won't go through. He goes, text her. I'm like, what is a text? And he explained, well, you go to your little keyboard there and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So that's how I learned how to text.
AJ Barry.
Communications were rudimentary. AJ what?
AJ Barry.
AJ Barry.
Yeah.
I mean, Appleberry. Sorry.
All good. One more, just 60 more seconds from Matt Kennedy before we get you out of here, man. I appreciate you hopping on board this morning.
Sure.
The aftermath of Katrina, as things started to settle back down from a crisis situation, that leaves us with a Baton Rouge that is more than full. Was talking with Kelly Schulz from New Orleans and Company, and she was thanking Baton Rouge for its hospitality. I said, Kelly, I could tell you this 20 years later, we were cursing you in traffic.
It was unbelievable. It wasn't as bad as the immediate aftermath of Gustav,
right?
But I'll tell you, it was bad, and you couldn't get into a restaurant to save your life. I mean, you just couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, everything was packed. It was amazing. It really was. But it was the least we could do. We really saw. I heard you and your previous guest discussing, life in the Superdome. But I'll give New Orleans credit. There's still a lot of scars from that storm, but the city showed a resiliency that was pretty mind-boggling. A lot of cities would not have pulled through that well, I don't think.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. He's Matt Kennedy. Always appreciate the time, brother. Talk to you soon.
Can't believe it's been 20 years. You know what that means, huh? We're getting old, brother.
Getting?
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Hey, man, appreciate you. Best
Always.
to you and your family.
Likewise. We'll
Bye-bye.
talk soon. It's 8:17. Quick break. Come back. General Honoré, pre-recorded. General Honoré next. Shit, we ran long there. We're going to have to squeeze Dan down a good bit. How long is Honoré? Okay. 7 minutes. How long do we have left in this break? That's impossible. We haven't gotten to traffic yet. Can you kill the pot before traffic? We'll skip this traffic. Like as soon as the spot's over with, just kill it and hit a bumper. Yeah. You don't have to stop the. When you think about Hurricane Katrina, where does your mind go first?
Flying into the
I'm sorry,
city
stop.
on
My apologies. I thought that had an intro on it, y'all. I got the chance to talk with General Russel Honoré not too long ago about the overall hurricane season. Want to play back a portion of that interview where he relives Katrina. All right, now go ahead. When you think about Hurricane Katrina, where does your mind go first?
Flying into the city on Wednesday morning and landing at the Superdome at 9:47 and seeing thousands of people wrapped around the Superdome waiting to be evacuated. That sight will never leave me. And as I walked from my helicopter and looked on the side of the Superdome, I saw a lady moving a toddler in a shopping cart, and the baby was up to its chest in water. I'll never forget that scene.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sets the tone. Because from there, I mean, honestly, General Honoré, from there, it only got worse before it started getting better. Walk us through a little bit about, the fight to get everybody marching in the same direction.
Well, a lot of the challenges was the communication systems was down, as you know, Brian, inside the city. The first responders were doing the best they can, but many of their vehicles were underwater. There was trouble communicating between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. I had my meeting with the mayor when I landed on Wednesday morning, and he said his priority was evacuate the city, which I was very clear. I flew to Baton Rouge and saw Governor Blanco, and she reiterated a task to evacuate the city, provide food and water and medicine to people, and keep people alive. And that task was very clear. And we went to work then establishing the logistics it took to get the buses in there, working with the Louisiana National Guard, who did a great job. As you know, the Tiger Brigade 256 was in Iraq at the time, so we had the remnants of the Guard, and they were doing a good job, but their vehicles that were stationed at Jackson Barracks were underwater, so they had to go through some logistics there to get them moving. And we worked out a plan on the back of a piece of paper, and we had a great team in Baton Rouge working at GOSEP, and they developed the evacuation plan, and we walked the people out of the Superdome to buses on Padres through the buildings there without getting them into the water, and the buses started rolling. And on Saturday, we got airplanes into the airport because the airport was able to get it open, and TSA flew people in to open the airport because our people were evacuated. And we flew out about 16,000 people there. And most of that work was coordinated with the National Guard, moving people on the buses from the convention center and into the New Orleans airport. So it was a challenging time.
Was there any way to be mentally or emotionally prepared for what you were actually not just going to see, but you see and deal with when you combine, like you said, that just the rows and rows of people standing on the interstate, the rows and rows of people standing outside the Superdome or the convention center? I mean, it looked like a third world country. And then on top of that, the communications issues. And then on top of that, the element that didn't want to leave the city. Like, was there any way to fully know what you were walking into?
Well, we were watching it unfold on Thursday before Katrina. We were planning in Atlanta. I was the commander of First Army at the time, and we put a request in for ships and helicopters to the Pentagon. And on Friday afternoon, I was told, tell General Honoré, we don't have a request from FEMA yet because that was the protocol. They were following protocols. That we don't send federal troops until there's a request from the governor, go to FEMA, and FEMA asks for federal troops. But we were planning. We just couldn't get things moving until after it unfolded and the levees broke. That was a game changer, Brian. If the levees hadn't broke, this would have been a bad storm.
Yeah.
But when the levees broke, 80% of the city and surrounding parishes underwater, that changed the game.
Went from bad to worse, to be sure. We've got retired Lieutenant General Russel Honoré on with us. One more on looking back on Katrina before we move on to this hurricane season, and that was a moment of frustration on your part, a moment of on-air frustration on your part, turned into an iconic phrase. Give us the background on "stuck on stupid." I think a lot of us still use that term.
Yeah, that's actually from an old blues song called Shirley Brown. I was listening to public radio on Saturday before Katrina, working in my garden, and that song came on, and I said, we can't be stuck on stupid. That song by Shirley Brown, and of course it's an old blues song, and the whole time in preparing mentally to be prepared to deploy to respond to the storm, I said, we don't want to do what we didn't do right the last time. We had gone through all of the lessons from Andrew and other big storms that had come to South Louisiana. We don't want to make the same mistakes, and we had dealt with 4 hurricanes the year prior in Florida.
Yeah.
Let's not get stuck on stupid. Let's do what we've got to do to go save lives. So we were leaning forward in that regard, Brian.
Did we learn anything?
Oh, yeah, a lot of lessons learned. One of the things that go unnoticed is that we had a very successful, in terms of percentage, 80% of the people in the area actually evacuated.
Yeah.
It's that 20% that didn't evacuate that we saw unfold as a global news line for everybody. And the other thing we learned, Brian, is most of the people that died, whether that number is 1,300, 1,600, or 1,800, when we recovered them in their homes, and I say we because it was a collective effort of federal, state, and local assets, we put troops in there to help them carry the remains out. Most of those people were elderly, disabled, and poor. And in some cases, they were all three. And the majority of them were alone in their home, Brian.
Yep. Yeah. That was retired Lieutenant General Russel Honoré talking about, his experience during Katrina. And that's going to be where we call it for today on the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. We've got more show to go here, and we have to walk this delicate balance of not having any way to transition from post-Katrina to LSU football season being upon us. We're going to have Chris Blair join us in our next segment. Right now, though, I want to go back to the hotline and welcome Dan Palmer on board. Hang on one second. I want to go back to the hotline. Give me one quick second, y'all. My apologies. I want to go back to the hotline. Welcome Dan Palmer on board. Are you there? I think I hung up on you.
I'm here.
There he is. All right. We've got a big announcement coming up. We've got a big announcement from Mockler Beverages getting to the NIL world. Help us kick off the season here, Dan. Tell us what the latest is.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, Brian,
I know. There was zero segue there, and I apologize for it.
No, I appreciate you helping me spread the news and working me in this morning. Yeah, big news. We announced yesterday that Anheuser-Busch, behind their Form Energy drink, has signed their first NIL deal, and that's going to be with the Weeks brothers. That was announced yesterday on Matt's show, and we've started a digital campaign to support it. So we're very excited about this new endeavor, this new landscape of collegiate athletics, and us being a part of it.
Okay, what is Form Energy? Because when I hear Mockler, when I hear Anheuser-Busch, I'm thinking of the tried and true, the Bud and Bud Light. It's an energy drink?
Great question, and that's why we're spreading the news here. Yes, so Anheuser-Busch has partnered up with an operation called First Form, and it's Dana White is associated with it as well, to produce this new functional sports energy drink called Form Energy. So we got 4 flavors, and it's the natural caffeine, no sugar. Helps with hydration, all the things you're looking for in a high-performance drink for that fitness enthusiast.
The natural caffeine coming from green tea extract, if I was reading the press release right. Do we know why that's different, why it's better? I know the answer is less gut rot, but like overall, the caffeine boost that you get, it plays differently.
Well, it's just the balance of being natural, and that's what people are looking for. That ties into that zero sugar piece as well. Natural flavors, natural tea, no sugar added. It's just better for you.
Got 2 minutes left with Dan Palmer. We're talking about Form Energy and their new NIL deal with the Weeks brothers. I've got to ask, man, do the Weeks brothers need more energy?
Well, I don't think you could have found 2 better people to support what this brand represents. And, one of the key things I wanted to point out is, Anheuser-Busch is a global brand. They could have gone anywhere in the country with this, and they chose LSU. It speaks to the national relevance of the program, and I don't think they could have found any 2 better people to represent. Their tagline is "We do the work." The grit and the determination of what it takes to compete and succeed and improve yourself every day. So I think it's a real shout out to Baton Rouge and the national relevance of LSU, and a big tip of the cap to the Weeks brothers for the work that they've done to be on this stage. So it's just a phenomenal partnership.
But talk about those partnerships. Don't leave Mockler out of the mix here. I mean, y'all play a role in making sure point A gets to point B.
Well, we take a lot of pride in it because we feel like our relationship and, the Anheuser-Busch distributor network is a competitive environment as well. And we feel like we, hit the streets and do the best that we can do with the resources provided. And that was a big piece of bringing this to life in Baton Rouge as well, with what we do to promote brands and strategies and things in our market. So, we take a lot of pride in this news as well.
Got about a minute left with Dan Palmer from Mockler Beverage. All right, what can we be on the lookout from the week? What can we be on the lookout for from the Weeks Brothers?
Well, so the highlights of the partnership are the social element to it. So be sure you're following all the social sites. And then there'll be some in-person experiences that'll yet to be announced, as well as some sweepstakes that we'll be putting on. So those are kind of the key call outs to the partnership. And again, we just launched this thing. It's brand new. We're spreading the word. So if you're into this, to the energy drinks, support form, it's supporting the players. So that's what these NIL deals are all about, is the product supporting the people, and then the fans supporting those products,
Last one before you get out of here, and I'm completely shameless in saying this. We have a mini fridge right outside. I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, Dan. When can we stock that bad boy with some samples?
I've already talked to Moscona. There'll be a delivery over there, probably the first of next week, for all of you guys to try and sample and promote for us.
Looking forward to it. It's called Form Energy. That's PHORM, Form Energy. Be on the lookout for it. He's Dan Palmer from Mockler Beverage. Thanks for hopping on board.
Man, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Always. We are way late. Local news, traffic, weather. Voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair is next. That went well. I gave homeboy no segue. So good. Mm-hmm. I've watched episodes 1 and 2 of the Netflix documentary, and the delay of evacuating the Dome and Convention Center was the center of the drama, but there's zero concession given to needing time to set up places for them to go. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. I haven't seen the Netflix one yet. The Net Geo one was the one that we just finished. I'll have to go back and watch that one as well. Yeah, that's a part of it, right? But there was a bigger part of it was like, where are we going? I don't know. Let's just get him the F out of here. Which that kind of open-endedness was problematic to begin with. And you heard Ed talking about, do you have Chris Blair's number? JP, do you have Chris Blair's number? You do? Okay. Let's get him on right now. The whole, like, even if you brought them across the river to the Ilario Center, then there was no flooding there, right? But Ed was talking about snaking through a path that wasn't going to be underwater to get, to the Superdome, and how long that took. I'm wondering why not from the West Bank? Why not, like, because you got an elevated West Bank Expressway that's even elevated all the way up to Poydras. So I don't know how that would work to physically turn buses around, but I mean, it wasn't flooded on Convention Street Boulevard, wasn't flooded on Chapatoulas. It wasn't flooded between the dome and from the dome to the river wasn't flooded. So come on over from the West Bank, hop off on the first exit, and then hop back on again. I don't know. It just seemed like snaking through on the east side just kind of, it made the equation more difficult. Who's our new weather person? Yeah. Emma Kate. Good old EKC. She gone. Mm-hmm. All right, Dave Baker, let's go. $8:39, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. All right. Yep, we are now pivoting, officially pivoting. Thanks to Dan for hopping on board for the awkward segue there. LSU football kicks off tomorrow night. Joining us now, voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair. Voice, what's happening?
Hey there, Brian. Yes, indeed. Much talked about, much anticipated, but we're closing in 24 hours. We're going to play some football.
I'm loving it. Yeah, very, very much anticipated. Is it safe to say, like, this is the most – now, once 2019 got off and running, it that's its own beast. But the preseason anticipation, I feel like this is the highest it's been in as long as I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I mean, you and I both know the expectations every single year. I mean, you could almost argue that every year it gets even more and more. But I get the sense that it is that way. And I think part of it is because you look at what's on this roster, you look what this coaching staff has assembled, and give them credit. As I've said for months now, I mean, it's hard to fix a problem if you don't first identify it. And I think it was clearly identified that it was defensively where they needed to really beef up. Mm-hmm. And at least in the offseason with the number one transfer portal class, I mean, the work was done in that time frame. Now it's a matter of going out and making plays, but there's playmakers all over this roster for LSU. So I think there's this high level of optimism, high level of excitement, and probably just a little bit of angst. Because again, it's been 5 years since you won an opener. Right. I give LSU a little bit of credit in the sense that I think in a lot of ways they've kind of led us towards what everybody else is heading. Where you're going to play 9 conference games and you want to make that strength of schedule very difficult so that you've got some leeway when it comes to the committee picking those 12 spots. I think LSU has done that. And once again, they're playing a very good team to open the season. So I think you can mix the excitement as well as a little bit of angst. But I think that'll be forgotten about, sometime around 6:50 tomorrow night.
Boot will meet ball at, I believe, 6:51 was the what the text message said. So yeah, we cannot. This could be the longest 34 hours ever. Talk with voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair. Let's talk before we get to the opposition. Let's talk a little bit about that emphasis on the first game, Chris. You've had a number of opportunities to talk with Coach Kelly. He has put an emphasis on breaking that 5-game streak. What went into that, that he shared with you? What went into that decision, and how is he managing it to make sure it's not like this isn't, all the chips are in for this one game only?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, and I've said this many times, you can go back to, heck, I think it's hard to delineate this coaching staff and this program, the end of 2024 and the start of 2025. I mean, it's almost like one continuous season. And when you went over to football ops during spring football, when you've gone over there during the summer months, and certainly once fall camp began, I mean, there's an emphasis that I hate to say this, but, and maybe it's because it's on our minds, you can tell it was about August 30th. I think early on, maybe you don't want to put all your marbles in one game. I mean, goodness knows, once the season starts, the older I get, you wait forever to get the opener, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 you're in December.
Right.
And you've got some pretty good teams you got to play that you got to prepare for. But, Coach Kelly's been very clear to me every time we've gotten together that this is a huge game, and the guys have a sense of urgency. And there are times in certain places in that building that I've joked, you may think LSU's playing one game this regular season, and that's coming up tomorrow night against Clemson. So there has easily been a detectable and palpable emphasis on this sense of urgency. And, talking to him last night on the show, he was talking in terms of not just sense of urgency for the opening game, but a sense of urgency as soon as they come out of the locker room on Saturday night. So it's been talked about. I think you also have not only veteran returners that I'm sure we'll talk about, but the transfer portal that was number one class in the country also has played big-time minutes, big-time games, big-time stages in the Power Four. So, I think that helps this coaching staff feel like this team is mature enough to understand you only get 12 guaranteed opportunities, and each one of them weigh the same, and you got to take the advantage of those opportunities. And that's why I think they're going to play well tomorrow night.
We got voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, on with us talking about the LSU Clemson game coming up tomorrow night. All right, let's start with the opposition before we get back to the Tigers, because I think if we do this sequentially, it's going to play right here. What can we expect from Clemson?
Defensively, offensively?
Start with the offensive side.
Well, it starts with Cade Klubnik, much like I guess most people would look at LSU and Garrett Nussmeier. You got a returning quarterback who's done some really good things. He's got continuity to the offense, to the offensive coordinator and the head coach. Both teams have that, and Klubnik's got it in value. They've got a really good receiving core. I guess Williams probably the leader in that. TJ Moore, a freshman last year, and Wesco, both freshmen, were incredible. I think they all three combined for, don't quote me on this, 21, 22 touchdowns on the year receiving. So he's got weapons to utilize. To me, the biggest question mark for Clemson, just watching, what's happening out of the upstate of South Carolina is, they've had some injury bugs here of late with the offensive line. I think Dabo has talked about some guys maybe not quite being 100% that they were looking to count on. And they've got a running back who looks the part, but he's a converted wide receiver. Now he's 6'2", and I think 235, 240 pounds. So he's a load. But again, he was a receiver up until basically the start of spring football this year. But they got plenty of weapons. I asked Coach Kelly last night, is there an SEC team that offensively looks a little bit like Clemson? And he said, not really, except maybe a little bit of the Auburn style of offense under Hugh Freeze. They want to get Klubnik. He'll extend the play. He's got great feet. He's got great vision. He's going to look to throw when he extends the play. He averaged about 33 yards per carry, but a little bit like Joe Burrow, and please, everybody, don't take a deep gasp, in only one aspect, and that is when the play breaks down and he literally has no options with the arm, he has no problem tucking and running.
Okay.
that's where the Joe Burrow comparisons start. So I don't need any tweets sent my way. But that's the type. He's not a guy that's going to have a lot of design runs, but he certainly has the ability to do it. So in essence, they've got continuity with personnel and they've got continuity with their offensive coordinator. A little bit different on the defensive side.
Elaborate.
Well, they've got a new defensive coordinator, very good, and Tom Allen. He was the head coach in Indiana for several years. He just came down from Happy Valley, been the DC at Penn State for Coach Franklin. And, last year Clemson, I think, was fourth in the ACC in total defense, scoring defense. They were third in the SEC in passing defense, but they were 16th, Brian, out of 17 ACC schools against the run. So for all the Tiger fans of LSU that want to see the Tigers run the football, there may be an opportunity. Yeah. However, I'm pretty sure the reason there was a change from Wes Goodwin to Tom Allen as defensive coordinator because of that 16 out of 17 run defense. But they've got personnel that are returning. And when you listen to the pro scouts, they will tell you this is a number of guys who are going to make their living playing on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, whenever the NFL decides to play. And so, how much work has been done to change that philosophy defensively, we'll find out. But you could tell Coach Kelly is committed to wanting to run the football. He said we have to be disciplined and not go away from it when it doesn't happen immediately. We've got to continue to try to run the ball. They may have some success against Clemson, who certainly struggled. If there was one weakness last year, it was against the run.
Let's flip it around to LSU's side there. We know what we've got in Garrett Nussmeier, but in front of Garrett Nussmeier is a new group of guys. They've played a lot, but they haven't played a lot together. What's LSU going to do to manage that as they gel, as they form?
Well, I asked Coach Kelly last night. If you remember, Brian, a couple of weeks ago, he talked about the competition at the offensive line and that you don't have a Will Campbell, you don't have an Emory Jones. Those guys also have done pretty well for themselves in the game of football. But with Braylon Moore coming in at the center position, when you hear the offensive coaches talk, they talk about how just his experience coming in from Virginia Tech, he's played at Clemson in those type games, that he's just kind of calmed and also at the same time lifted the entire unit. So when Coach Kelly talks about having 6, 7, maybe even 8 guys that could be in that rotation, I think initially we all think, well, wait a minute, you haven't settled on a starting 5? But they have. But I think he's optimistic that they've got some talent, young and veteran, that they feel comfortable with rotating in. I think it's a good thing. I know a lot of people maybe are worried that the fact that maybe you haven't solidified that 5 that we'll see just about every snap of every game. But I think they feel good about having pieces that, depending on what happens in a given game, they've got depth at that position, something that they have desperately been working on since Coach Kelly arrived.
Which depth at that position means fresher legs come later in the game, which means you can continue to spread the ball around a little bit. You can continue to utilize the pass as the run and then run it itself as well. It's just I like a lot of where the ingredients are headed.
Absolutely. I mean, I without question, and I'm not saying something that is an epiphany by any stretch of the imagination, but this is the most talented team on the roster that Coach Kelly and his staff have had. You can look at each position group, start with the offensive line. I mentioned Braylon Moore going to improve things. I think Tyree Adams has a chance to be a great one here before his time is done. You look at the linebacker position. I mean, Wes Weeks, Whit Weeks, Devon Keys, Harold Perkins Jr. at that star position.
Yep.
I think the secondary has added not only some very valuable experience, Brian, from last year from some younger guys and newer guys who were just kind of baptized by fire, but they went out and got some guys who really can cover, and they're super excited. Corey Raymond is excited about how this team and his group on the back end of that defense can get better starting tomorrow and as the season goes on. The wide receiver, they got probably 8 legit guys who could be playing a lot of snaps for just about any Power 4 school. So, I mean, you look at the roster. I look at my 2 deep that I completed last night, and there's some guys I'm expecting to make plays and expecting them to make plays as soon as tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night at 6:50 is when kickoff will be, roughly 6:50. Coverage on the network begins at 4:30. He's Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers. Always appreciate the time. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
You got it, Brian.
Later on. He's about to be wheels up to Clemson. We got a break. We take the got a break. Come back. We'll close it out next on Talk 107.3. Just for clarification standpoint, all of the Your Money Now reports are the markets are closed on Monday. Fucking at me. You want to do this day in history? Yeah, so did Ida. You mentioned it. You when you mentioned Ida, I started thinking in the back of my mind, should we do that for the last segment?
Shit, that's what changed my life. That's why I'm here, guys. That's why I'm here. That's how I got here.
That's how you got here, Storm Surge?
No, it's because Ida
pushed all the way up.
Pushed, just like, wait, what's going on? Ended up at the front door of
We
Guaranteed.
don't need anything super definitive for this day in history. If you want to mention Ida and one or two other items.
Let's see. What else happened on this? God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you. Oh.
Man, the bar's been set so high with Katrina. I'm like, what else is like
Yeah, if you want to mention like 97 was the launch of Netflix was launched.
Oh, okay, yep.
And
because I've been going through it. Let's see. John McCain, pig brain implant, 2020. Elon Musk unveils a pig named Gertrude with a coin-sized computer in her brain as part of a Neuralink startup creating a brain-to-machine interface. What the freak? The Carter 4 was released. Nah, people aren't gonna go.
I gotta stand up for one quick second.
You know what? I got a music one. I got a music one here.
Music one. Oh, good.
Cool.
What's your music one?
Iggy Pop released his second album, Lust for Life, a collaboration with David Bowie.
Okay. I thought you mentioned the Carter 4.
Oh, you think people want to know that? I could.
Why do you think the Carter 4 was released today? 856 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Duty to remind you about the folks over at Landmark Bank. LandmarkBankLA.com is the website. LandmarkBankLA.com. Founded in 1897 as a community bank, and in 2025, boom, still a community bank. Now, which community you're in, if you're in Brewley, if you're up in Zachary, if Clinton, in fact, go to LandmarkBankLA.com and hit the drop-down tab that shows you their locations. If they're in your community, you don't just need a bank, you need a banker. Someone who's there to walk the path with you, either through your personal banking, whether you're talking checking, savings, borrowing, investing for the future, or you're talking about the business world, taking that entrepreneurship jump, or working through with a small business. They've got you covered at LandmarkBankLA.com. Don't just have a bank, have a banker. All right, time for This Day in History. Let's roll. Obviously, it's Katrina, right?
Yes.
So we could skip right past that. We've done that for 2.5 hours.
Of course.
What else you got?
Keeping it music related, let's start off in 1977, where Iggy Pop releases his second album, Lust for Life, a collaboration with David Bowie. If you listen close enough in this show, I actually put that song's in there. It's in the mix.
Okay.
1997, Netflix is founded by Mark Randolph and Reed Hastings in Scotts Valley, California.
Man,
as an online DVD rental business.
So I'm big into this podcast called Business Wars.
Yeah.
And I just got done listening to Netflix versus Blockbuster. And yeah, I need to go find more on Reed Hastings.
There we go.
Because you want to talk about changing the entire game.
Oh man. And the fact that, kind of Blockbuster kind of laughed them off as, we're the top dogs here.
We're the community center where people want to go on a Friday night just to get together.
That's right. And Netflix was like, no, I think they'd rather stay home. Yeah. Oof. Well, 2011, the Carter 4, the ninth studio album by Lil Wayne, is released. So,
of course, he would do that. As a New Orleanian, he would launch that on the anniversary of Katrina.
That's right. Also, anniversaries 2021, Hurricane Ida makes landfall as a Category 4 storm near Port Fouchon.
Which you got caught up in the storm surge.
Yes.
It pushed you all the way to Baton Rouge.
That's it. I ended up at the front door of Guarantee Media here.
Yep.
So that happened today. Moving on to birthdays if we have time.
We do.
Michael Jackson today.
Michael Jackson.
Let's see. You know what? I should have
John McCain.
Oh, John McCain as well. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
what else you got over there?
Yeah, Oliver Wendell Holmes.
Okay, yeah.
And then in the sports world, former New Orleans Hornet David West and former New York Met Noah Syndergaard.
All right. Moving on to deaths real quick. Gene Wilder today is the only one I have.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh, miss him.
Indeed.
Gene Wilder is the one you got, and Ed Asner. I'll add to the list there. Do we have a national day today?
Oh, I don't.
It's the anniversary of Katrina, so we don't need one. 5-Star Printing and Signs brings you This Day in History every day. We always appreciate my Danny and his crew over there at 5-Star. 271-4096 is the number. 271-4096 when it's time to rebrand or just clean up your brand. Putting your best foot forward is what they do there at 5-Star Printing and Signs. 271-4096. We're done. See you Tuesday. And yes, we will see y'all Tuesday because we're off on Labor Day. I am way behind in my work because I've been gone. I didn't send you I sent you something and we didn't get to use it because we were so jam-packed.
Dang it. It's cool.
I got to find out a way. I want you to save the audio.
Oh, okay.
I sent you a TikTok from the meeting with Zelensky and Trump. Did you get that?
No. You sent it in a text or email?
I thought I sent it in an email.
No, I don't have it.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I'll find a way to get to it later on. Anyway, we'll see y'all. Have a great, safe Labor Day weekend. Go Tigers.